Good morning, everyone. Thank you for attending. Welcome to the Strategic Planning Workshop. If you'll stand with me, we'll have the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I salute the flag of the state of New Mexico as the symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures.
Vaughn, you look like you were in a Pentecostal church this morning. All right, good morning, everybody. We're going to try to move through this pretty rapidly. We want to make sure we cover it good, but we have a tremendous amount of ground to cover. Do we have Senator Burt? If he's available, we want to give him his time. And
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, I did text Senator Burt. He said give him a few minutes. He's still trying to get logged on, and we can move over to the next items, and then when he does log into Zoom, we can.
Okay, so will you go ahead and move through and start with the overview process, and we'll start with Zach Cook.
Thank you, Mayor.
Microphone.
Thank you, Mayor and councilors. Just as a brief overview of the way municipalities in New Mexico are set up, there are different options that incorporated municipalities can choose the way to operate their municipality. There's the commission manager municipality, which I don't really know. In my 20 years of practice in law, I've never represented a commission manager. It works differently. The different parts of the legislative and the executive have different powers and authorities under the statutes and under charters. But what you guys are, what Ruidoso is a mayor council form of municipality, where you have the mayor and then the governing body or the councilors or trustees, which in our case we have 6, and some municipalities have more and some have less. It just depends on the size and what the governing body wants to do. The mayor, of course, is the chief executive officer of the municipality, and what he does is he presides over the meetings, as you guys know. He has no vote unless there's a tie, and then he has no veto power on what the governing body votes on. And then the governing body or the council, in our case, is the legislative branch. And you guys raise issues and bring items to the mayor for consideration for legislative purposes. And then, of course, there's the judge in a mayor council municipality whose job is to adjudicate alleged violations of our village ordinances. And then also under our statutes, any municipality with over 1,000 population can elect to create the office of manager, which Ruidoso has done many years ago, and currently that position is held by Mr. Sena. And their job is to, you guys are the policy-making body, and it's Ron and the staff's job to implement the policies that you guys adopt. And that is essentially how it all works. And I know that you guys have taken a lot of classes and taken your positions very seriously and know all this stuff, but it's always good to get a little refresher. So thank you, Mayor.
Well, we appreciate you doing that. It's amazing how many mayors and councils don't understand their positions at all. And I see the esteemed Senator Bill Burt has joined us. Good morning, Senator. You're on mute. I can hear you now. Can we bring him up bigger?
Yeah, go to the 3 dots.
We're just trying to get you where we can see you. I know you got a busy day. There you are. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
My pleasure. Thank you, and welcome to beautiful downtown Santa Fe.
So tell us a little bit about what's going on, if you can give us a legislative update on where you're at, because I know you guys, I talked to you the other day and you were on the floor, so you guys are already started?
wanted to make sure that I did line with you guys first, before I got into that particular meeting. So we're doing finance, a lot of work in finance. We have prepared our what we used to call junior money, which is now grow money. And we have designated that, we're waiting for final approval there. We are going to work on our capital outlay money this week, and we hope to have that finalized, I believe, by Friday or Monday. And in the meantime, now we're starting to have bills heard in committees and starting to move some of those along. I will tell you, it's a typical 30-day session, and we're almost half the way through, and we now have almost 300 bills introduced in the Senate. Which, 90% of those are moving through the line of data, unfortunately, but we do what we can do to move some of this along. Big bills right now that we're discussing, a couple of gun bills, 14-day waiting period. The governor has a bill, Joseph Cervantes, who is the chairman and attorney out of Guyana, who was the chairman of Senate Judiciary, has a different version of that. I think they're trying to come to consensus on that particular bill. That would be probably the first gun bill that we will hear, which unfortunately will probably pass the Senate with about 14 or 15 no votes from the Republican side of the House.
Why do you think they'll have a no vote? Is this the one that we're talking about, the gun bill and the red flag portion, or is this the one that municipalities would be able to make the decision on gun bans?
This would be a 14-day waiting period.
Okay, that's it.
To purchase a firearm, yeah. So they want to enhance the red flag law. That has not been picked up in the committee, to my knowledge, as yet. So that's a little bit down on the pecking order. And there are some more gun bills coming up, and so we're watching those pretty closely. Again, most of us on the conservative side of the House just don't believe any of these bills are worth passing, putting on the books, attempting to enforce, because it is, they are designed only to make it more difficult to own and purchase and own and store firearms in the state of New Mexico by law-abiding citizens. It doesn't address any crimes. It doesn't address, unauthorized firearms in the public. Nothing like that. It's just making that side of the fence, if you will, feel better about we're doing something to slow down the gun issues in the state of New Mexico.
Okay, has there been anything, you saw the justices appear before the Legislative Finance Committee asking for more funding. The AOC was, no bail, no tickets, no fines, no fees. We're $19 million in the red. Are they going to be able to get additional funding, you think?
They will get additional funding. We haven't come to terms on if they'll get the full amount or a portion of that. Also remember that every agency in the state for years has been asked to build up some reserves, and also because of the amount of money that we've given to every agency in the state because of their requests every year, they also have unspent portions of their budget. And so a lot of times when we look at making sure that there is money available for things that we do want to continue to fund, we shortchange them a little bit, and people get a little upset with us, but that's not the case. It's because we know that they have reserves that can be used, and they also have some funding from the previous year that can be rolled over and used for the same purposes that they're asking for that full $19 million. I don't know if that's the case here, but I'm just saying, I hope everyone will understand that we get a little tight on money sometimes, and it has to do with knowing full well that they've got reserve money, and they also have money they haven't spent this year.
Okay, because I know they gave themselves a pretty big raise. But, also we just have a new AOC building the magistrate court building. We want to make sure they can still pay their bill. That's the main thing, so,
Well, and I don't think that would be a problem.
right.
I think it's some of the additional expansion things that we need to look at. One other thing I will tell you is, we have pushed hard, in times past, counties have been able to build courthouse facilities, courtrooms and things of that nature. In today's world, the cost of construction, as you know, Mayor and Commission, is very, very expensive. And so what we've asked, AOC to do is to put some additional funding in their budget annually to, divvy out to counties to help them either repair their current facilities or, start work on a new facility. We're looking at a new facility in Otero County. We have, through bonding and, through some pretty, prudent, works, we have been able to store up X amount of money. Last year, AOC had $20 million in the budget for just this purpose. We were able to receive about 15 of that. We're getting, closer to final design so that we can, send this out on an RFP and break ground on a new, judicial facility. Because ours is 60, 65 years old, and, if we tried to repair it, it'd be putting a Band-Aid on a, gushing artery somewhere. So, we wanted them to do that again. They've only put $10 million in there this year, but we want to make sure that there's additional for maintenance and rehabbing the buildings. But that also has to do with taking the pressure off of monies that might be spent, to maintain and actually operate in those facilities, including magistrate courts and district courts.
Okay, thank you. Is there anything that you need us to help you with, look out for?
No, at this time, I would say no. I think capital, again, it looks like we'll have about the same as last year. Senate members will have 4.17. House will have, about 3 million. And we're, of course, we've had that discussion before. I have about 50% of my district in Otero and about 45% in Lincoln, and so we try and divide our monies, like that. I work with Harlan Vincent, and the others like Cliff Purdle and Jim Townsend, to make sure that we're distributing that money, as best we possibly can in a fair manner. We always have a whole lot more requests than we have money, but we will do our absolute best to make sure that, as many of your needs, that you've requested are taken care of. So that's our, probably the next few days challenge right now.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody have any comments or? Well, we know you're busy today. We appreciate your time, and we will see you, quite a few of us, will see you next week.
We're looking forward to that. Please come up and, just keep us in your prayers, will you?
Absolutely, for sure. One question, that finger on the back of your, behind you, what is that?
I have more people ask me about that. Actually, it's a Phoenix Suns deal, but I will tell you, my first year up here, I was appointed to this position, when Diana Duran became Secretary of State. She was from the district, and so, the commission, and you know the process, the commission set my name up, and I became, the only one, the new guy on the Senate floor, and for 2 years, I had to take a lot of heat from, senior senators about, some food policies I would make, or some, some little fun things that they would, end up having, to do at my expense. So George Munoz, the now, chairman of finance, got me that, indicating that, I'm number one, but I'm the only one. So, buck up, buddy. You got a rough road over the next couple of years. So that's where the finger comes from.
Okay, good. From good old George.
All right?
All right, well, thank you so much. Thanks, sir.
My pleasure.
Thank
Anytime,
you.
guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator.
Appreciate you. All right, we'll go ahead and move on to Jenny, if you'll do our village mission and purpose.
Good morning, everyone. So the mission statement for the Village of Ruidoso is the Village of Ruidoso is dedicated and committed to provide friendly, innovative, and quality government services which will promote a healthy and safe environment while enhancing opportunities for all citizens and visitors who live, work, and play in nature's playground. The rest of the purpose statements are as follows. We have some new ones that Village Manager Senna asked that I read, and I believe the new ones are the airport, events and strategic partnerships, and the Wingfield Heritage House Museum. So the Sierra Blanca Regional Airport, its purpose statement is to provide a safe and adequately maintained transportation hub serving the village of Ruidoso, Lincoln County, state of New Mexico, in all general aviation in a professional, business-like manner. The purpose statement for events and strategic partnerships is, events and strategic partnerships is a key element in driving growth and development. Organizing well-curated events not only attracts tourists, but also engages the local community, fostering pride. Collaborations allow for shared resources, increased promotional reach, and the creation of unique offerings. This allows for data-driven decisions to ensure that resources are allocated effectively, optimizing the return on investment for both the community and tourists. And the purpose statement for the Wingfield Heritage House Museum is as follows. The Wingfield Heritage House Museum serves as a gathering place that tells the story and preserves the history of Ruidoso and the surrounding area through education, collaboration, and community engagement.
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, if anyone had any questions on the new, so we do have the new directors and managers here, so, with this last 2023, we've created some new positions, so they're doing a great job.
I appreciate that. If we could have Samantha come up, and we'll move on to the review of the comprehensive plan.
This is also something the mayor spoke about yet last night, was the comp plan, and it's hard to believe it's been 5 years, going to be hitting 5 years on this, so thank you, Samantha.
Thank you. Good morning, Mayor, Council. The comprehensive plan is the overarching policy document that guides the departments for future growth and development of the community. Our current comprehensive plan was adopted by you all November 12th, 2019. We have since used the action plan at the back of the plan to promote the village environmentally, fiscally, and socially sustainable. Right now, we are working off the current vision and policy recommendations that are within and throughout that were formed by community outreach and engagement by our stakeholders. So what we're going to focus on in the last part of this year would be applying for another grant through the New Mexico Finance Authority for $50,000. We'll be closing out the current grant that we have obtained for $50,000 that covered the cost of the Metropolitan Redevelopment Area Plan. So those closing documents will be presented to you all on the 13th of this month. And I think that'll give us enough time to justify applying for another $50,000 to cover the cost of the update, at least hopefully the majority of it. I know the last one, you all invested $100,000 into it, and so we'll have to see what prices are at now, 5 years later. So we'll search grants that come available. Those are a little bit difficult. I know there is one through CDBG that covers planning documents. However, that's very labor intensive. We'll have to weigh our pros and cons with that. But we will work towards getting grants to fund that, and then follow some of the same similar strategies for community engagement to get with our stakeholders, create some focus groups, and have town hall meetings and maybe even some community vision workshops throughout the year-long planning process of updating the comprehensive plan. And the last component will have to be the advertisement that we'll work with the agency on for putting out information in our monthly newsletter. I know in the past we used FlashVote to do the online surveys for those that weren't able to be here in person. We'll do it on social media and just have booths at community events. And so with that, hopefully we'll be able to engage the community and help drive the future vision and policy of the community.
So are we expecting to do similar to what we did before to Convention Center, where we have little breakout sessions and invite people for financial, housing, all that stuff? Okay.
Yes, and hopefully a little bit more in depth. So last year, one thing that was discovered with the change of leadership in some of the departments, they were feeling that some of the direction has changed drastically, and so we'll want to make sure that we include each department, and we've expanded with like Eddie Ryan's position and all of those, and so make sure that we elaborate on each and every department and focus in. And one thing that the deputy manager has been working on is strategic planning with each of our committees and boards, and so I think that that will be vital to include their vision and goals for each board and include that into the comprehensive plan. So I think that'll be a great start for whoever the consultant will be on that project.
When do we think we'll start?
Not until the end of this year or early spring next year. But I'll work on obtaining the grant so we at least have funding
Okay.
in place.
All right. Very good. Anybody have any questions?
I just can't believe it's been almost 5 years.
Unbelievable.
That was yesterday.
And Mayor Crawford, members of the council, we used Site Southwest, and I know at the time they had Rose that was working there and did a great job. So we'll continue to, they have a lot of our history, but we'll continue to look into that, so.
Okay. Are you doing tactical plans?
I am.
You go ahead.
Oh, you want me to go?
Okay,
That's next, isn't it?
no, it's not. We have, she's on the next group, Mayor.
I think Zach's kicking off the executive.
Well, I'm looking at my agenda right on the front page.
Says tactical.
Says tactical plans next.
Yes, and then we have them in order by the administrator first, right under.
Oh, okay, so tactical plans, so Zach's.
Mr. Cook's first. That's why
Okay.
he's in suit and tie this morning, Mayor.
Yeah,
That's
boy,
what it was.
a sharp
I guess that's
dress.
what
you,
threw me
Samantha.
off.
Does this cost us
I thought she was just giving a review of what a tactical plan was.
My tactical plan is to ask for a raise. That's what I thought.
So you can get a new tie.
Exactly. Mayor and council, my tactical plan, I listed 4 items that are basically recurring themes in my role as your attorney. And then in addition to those, of course, almost daily something new and novel pops up that we all have to gather together and figure out. So, but what I've placed on the tactical item was IPRA and OMA, also known, which is the Inspection of Public Records Act and the Open Meetings Act, which together are called collectively sunshine laws. And it's all about transparency so the public knows what their government is doing. And this year, things have kind of calmed down, or this past year, things calmed down, but boy, for the few years prior to that, there were lawyers that were making it a niche practice, and I mean, all over the state, and the courts were commenting more on how to deal with it, or, you know, what constitutes violations of IPRA, and it's just something that we have to be on top of constantly. Jenny is very familiar with IPRA and does a heck of a job responding as well as all your directors. So I'm just there as support for them to you know, guide them and advise them on what changes there are to the law and what is subject to IPRA. And then the Open Meetings Act, we rarely have an issue with that. That's basically just complying with time limits on the agenda, what goes on the agenda, what has to be on there so that the public knows what you're talking about. So, but with Jenny and the manager, I don't think I've ever dealt with an issue on Open Meetings Act with you guys. And then next is the Clean and Lean projects. For years, the governing body has struggled with how to deal with that or not deal with it, and a lot of times it wasn't dealt with, and so now you guys get to deal with it because it's just, I think the policy direction you guys have said is that we've got to deal with it. So that is, of course, the resolution where you guys resolve that a piece of property in town is dangerous and needs to be cleaned up. That's why I put that on there, is because we have, you have adopted those resolutions in the last year or so. And I was talking to some other municipal attorneys in Santa Fe yesterday, and we were all just, commiserating over the clean and lean process and the fact that you have to follow through step by step by step until up to and including filing the lien and then filing the foreclosure, or else all that effort just kind of fizzles away. So, and you guys are on top of it, as well as code enforcement, so we'll continue to move forward on that. Next is human resources, always an issue. There's always something coming up, so I'm trying to work closely with Cheryl, and then, we have special counsel on those too, because those can get pretty complicated. But I'm there kind of as a go-between between special counsel, or if it's something pretty basic, then I'm there to help work through it. Contracts and procurement, always an issue. In fact, Christella sent me a contract yesterday that I need to work on, so we're always working on contracts and trying to help the different departments and directors deal with those contracts, stay on top of them, whether or not they need to be renewed, or if they're being complied with by us or by our contract, the person that we're in a contract with. And then other than that, there's always litigation. Thank God we have special counsel for the litigation that we deal with, but I kind of see my role in all of that as being the go-between between kind of like talking to a heart surgeon about what's going on with your heart. It would go one ear and in one ear and out the other for me, and I would have to ask somebody like Dr. Jackson to explain it to me like I'm a 5-year-old. So I kind of see that as my role, is talking to the specialists who, the complicated litigation, and then trying to break that down for you guys, if I understand.
Well, from one
it even.
5-year-old to
Yeah,
the other,
exactly.
we appreciate that. So.
Absolutely.
Well, yeah, but you know how those
No.
litigators are.
Well, you have to remember, every profession has its own language, and you get
Yes.
protection by it.
Yes. And so that covers what I've got on my plan, and otherwise, I appreciate the opportunity to represent you guys. You have a great staff and management and directors, and I love my job.
Any questions? Well, I appreciate how prompt you've been last year, responding to questions and concerns that come up, because I get emails every day that it's a big help for you just to read through them to make sure that all the, I get the gist of them, but, just looking for the potholes in them, so I appreciate that. Any questions?
Thanks,
Okay,
Zach.
thanks, Zach. Next up is Jenny.
Good morning. So, Mayor and council members, I woke up this morning remembering that this time last year, sitting right over there and being so nervous that I could barely talk. So I think I feel a lot more comfortable this morning. The organizational chart for my department is myself as village clerk, and then Yvonne Bartz is my deputy clerk. On my strategic plan, the first goal I have deals with records retention, a never-ending item in my department. And the plan I have for this is to transfer all the records that are considered permanent records to storage at the Horton Complex. In the past, I know that there was talk about building a new building, but the way things have changed this past year, it looks like I'm going to be able to have a room at the Horton Complex for permanent records. And the clerk, myself and my deputy clerk will be the responsible party for that. There's no resources that we'll need except for time. And I have a starting date of January 1 to the end of the year. The steps needed to achieve this goal is to organize all the public records according to their retention date for destruction. Prepare certificates of destruction for all with a retention date of up to 2024 for approval by the governing body. And we've been fortunate this last year that pretty much every month on the agenda, we've had a certificate of destruction. So I do feel like we're starting to make some progress that we didn't have in place before. The next step is to store all the permanent records, like I said before, and those with future destruction dates at the Horton Complex. Any questions on?
What constitutes a permanent record?
So the New Mexico State has a state retention and destruction schedule that is set. So there's different series of records, there's different departments, HR records, clerk, police, legal, fire, EMS. And each one of those, many of them, according to state statute, will set what that retention schedule is. Some of them are designated as permanent, never to be destroyed, such as ordinances, resolutions, minutes, that sort of thing. Now, there are some things that are considered permanent, such as building plans, building permits, things like that. Those things are at the discretion normally of the clerk and the governing body as to whether or not to keep those paper copies or to scan them like we do in Laserfish and destroy them. I have made the decision that the boxes and boxes of plans that we have, the physical papers, that we're going to be destroying those. We have those scanned. There's no reason to keep boxes and boxes of rolled up plans like for a building that would have been Rainmaker or what have you. So the things that have to do with the historical, the history of the village, like I said, anything that we need to preserve on things that have happened in the village, how certain things have gotten to where they have in the village, historically, administratively, ordinances, like I said, resolutions, minutes, that sort of thing. Now, in each department, there's things in the police department that have different retention periods than those in HR. As an example, employee records, there are some that are 99 years. You have to keep those. Those I don't feel comfortable destroying, but we do scan them. And the scanning process and where we're going to be going with that in the future is farther into my plan. So right now I have that room in my office that has a combination of water rights, permanent records, things that duplicate copies of such. So I have been able to start clearing those out. Whenever departments have records that are ready to be destroyed, I have them bring them to my office because I feel that that's my responsibility. They present me with a spreadsheet that identifies the series number, a description of the record, and the retention period. I have them bring those to my office. I prepare the certificate of destruction. I present them to you, and once they're approved, then I send them off to be destroyed. So it is a very gradual process, but I'm finding lots of duplicates, drafts, things like that, and those are handled differently. And we've been pretty aggressive on destroying those. So I have freed up some room, maybe not as much as I've wanted, but we are making progress.
Okay. Thank you.
May I ask a question?
Go ahead.
Yes.
Ron, and I know this is in another phase, but, you know, what do you think about a room at Horton for?
Mayor Crawford, Councilor Lutterman, we, in the final plan set, we do have a room that's dedicated to the clerk, also for the PD for storage of records, so that's in the plan design.
So that's just a plan, we haven't got that going yet, right?
We have the final, they're working on the final plan set for the building,
Okay.
so, but that is included.
Okay.
Oh, Mr. Mayor, Jenny, more from my education, when you microfiche these documents that we have to keep, specifically those that may be for permanent record, are those backed up to different servers at different locations, or how do we do that?
So they're backed up, so we use the system of Laserfish, which is a backup to the cloud. Counselor Jackson, I'm not sure what other off-site backup we have. That's a good question. I need to get with Andrew on that. There are,
I think maybe
There we
Judy
go.
knows.
Mayor, counselors, so we have that stool approach, the three prongs. So we have backups at the fire department, now Horton, and here. So
Yeah,
wherever it's uploaded, then there's a backup between those organisms.
in case of a fire
yeah,
or
just-
something, yeah,
Thank you.
yeah.
she heard me.
Yes, I apologize. What Judy had said is correct. And Mayor and Council, the backups will be addressed through the Laserfish, through the server on-site and off-site. And we're planning all of our backups with what we're planning with the IT expansion that we'll discuss here just shortly.
Okay, beautiful.
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, so currently we have documents being stored at the old purchasing building, and they're in the upstairs, and then we have some downstairs, so those will be all, Jenny's working on those and her staff, and then eventually whatever we need, well, those will be moved over to the Horton complex, so.
Okay,
Okay? Go ahead.
Okay. My next goal is records management, and the plan for that item is clean up, restructure, and organize the repository in Laserfish. Laserfish, as we've been talking, is the software we use to scan and store. The repository is the bank, if you will, or if someone goes in and they're searching for an item, there's different files, there's different path structures about where you can find different things according to what you're looking for. And the repository is, it's a mess. It's difficult for many in our departments to go in there and search for an item. And it's all about how it was set up initially.
is it like by dates, or?
No, so usually when you go in and you can search for, say, Wingfield. Okay, you can search Wingfield, but it's gonna bring up a Wingfield invoice, a Wingfield, anything that was talked about in minutes, a picture.
Yep.
Any of that kind of thing, where it should be more historical documents, administrative documents, but it'll just bring up, and you may see something with like an invoice, and underneath it, it's gonna have maybe a contract where somebody, an invoice from a contractor did something at Wingfield, just,
Yeah.
It's very hard to find what you're searching for, because it's just because of the way it was set up. No fault of anyone, it's just there's been a lot of hands in there, and
Yep,
I'll be going to, on that same note, steps needed to achieve this goal to maintain and records management in Laserfish requires Laserfish training. I will, upon approval of mayor and the village manager, be attending Laserfish training in April, and it's pretty much 3 days, and it's going to be cleaning up a repository, restructuring your repository, capturing, how to capture images, how to name items that would be, when you go into the search engine, will help you find what it is you need. And this will be something that I will be able to pass on to department personnel. So with that being said, Laserfish training on scanning workflow in the repository, and then train department personnel on the new scanning procedures that Laserfish will be introducing, and then how to retain those public records in Laserfish, which I have learned Laserfish does have modules that you can put in the retention period. It will flag you when those items are ready to be destroyed. There's contract management in there. There's different modules on Laserfish that we have not utilized that I will be gaining some training and information on to help with that.
Great.
And I think it'll be beneficial to all of our departments for that. Any questions? Okay, so the next one is something, it's new, you all, the previous two goals have been talked about before on my strategic plan from last year. The next one is asset management. The plan is to update and maintain asset inventory lists. The responsible party would be myself, my deputy clerk, department personnel. The resources needed would be asset inventory information from departments. The purpose of this is mainly to make sure that all of our assets and our infrastructure improvements are reflected in our insurance portal. Like suppose we do replace the roof on the convention center. We need to go in there and change the value of that building because we've done an improvement to it. And it also is an asset management. And I don't know, Judy may have some, I don't know in the past how the asset management's been. I know at the end of the year, everything over $5,000 usually is captured, and that makes it a capitalization, right? Okay. So this is all just to help the departments and the village to develop a process that we can all be on the same page. Whenever projects close out, those departments would send information to either myself or whoever we designate, and just to put that information into our asset management, a system of some kind.
Jenny, also with that, do you, like, everything that we have, like tables, does it have a number that you can punch up that number and know where that is so that you can get rid of it? Like when we're selling something off or giving things away, we can take that asset off of the books?
Counselor Mayor, none of our assets are tagged, is what
Okay.
you're talking about.
Okay,
We leave it up to the departments to keep a running list
okay,
of what they have as far as the equipment. We manage the bigger stuff, like the infrastructure additions, like the upgrade to Alto Plant 3. We keep track of that. We have some of the infrastructure, some of the roads, original historical costs and stuff like that. So I have a master list, but it's massive and it almost takes a whole person just to keep track of stuff going. And in some of the years, as far as like vehicles, sometimes somebody doesn't always tell us when they transfer the vehicle. We just know we have a vehicle on staff. So that's why it's been really good for the clerks to take over the licensing of the vehicles. So now we're finding out which
got it.
vehicles are still out there and which ones have gotten auctioned off.
So you do have that, you'll know if we still have the vehicle, what department's using it?
Yes, so we now have all of the titles in our possession. We have reached out to departments. They have provided us with a list of the vehicles they have, pictures of them. We make sure that the plates are correct.
Well, how do we handle things like other equipment? For example, hand rakes and shovels and all that, because years ago, we were out on a job and we couldn't even find a shovel. And then one of the guys that worked for us at the time, I knew him personally, and we went over to his house to load up for a camping trip, and there's 8 shovels in his garage that were the village's. So how do we keep track of stuff like that? Is it relied on by each department that they have to keep track of it, and then they do a monthly inventory?
Probably a yearly.
I'm not sure what
Not
they
sure
do.
either.
So I think we need to have overall arching policy about inventory control, because when I see repeatedly same guys going to Ace Hardware, and then they're telling me that we're keeping them in inventory just for you guys, I wonder why we're going through so much.
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, I know we'll use Jerry as an example. He has a list he has everything.
Well, that's Jerry, but
Yes.
what about everybody else?
Some of I know Adam has an individual that has the shop, but that's something we'll look into to make sure, just like with the Parks and Rec also, and see if they have something in place also.
Tools, weed eaters,
Yep.
all those things, and then a useful life that they're then
Correct.
disposed of.
So
Okay.
the threshold is $5,000 to control, or not to control, to track the asset management. The auditors would want to see everything 5,000 and over is what's entered for capitalization and depreciation, mostly. And that's not
But
like.
we're talking about loss, theft.
And Mayor and
Use.
Council,
Yeah,
one
I'm
of the
not
best
sure.
practices that most communities put into place, as Judy mentioned, there's kind of a labeling system that goes through.
Right.
It's usually done by a third party internally, so that would be like your purchasing departments. So in most cases, most departments would keep their master lists. Those master lists would have to be on file with a purchasing department or whoever you designate. But what happens is that at the end of the year, usually there's an inventory that's done of everything so that you can capture and make sure, as you mentioned, Parks has 15 shovels, they have X amount of items, and then it gets sent to purchasing for the end of the year closeout, and they say, yes, you have all your items on file, this is everything we tagged, we know you're there. So those are kinds of processes that exist. I'm sure, as Ron just mentioned, as Mr. Senna mentioned, that we can bring you back some options that may be better for inventory and processing, that you can take a look at and see which ones you'd approve of.
Because just as big as we are, and we've talked about this before, and then we go on to bigger things we've got to handle and forget about these, but it adds up tremendously. That, how do we maintain our inventory, make sure that we're keeping what's ours, and that we're taking care of it? That's another issue.
Yeah.
As I'm going through right now, I had an employee that just took over another vehicle that was in great shape, and inside of a month, it's trashed already, the inside, and scratches. And so it's about how do people handle your equipment? And so what do we do about things like that on trucks? I know that if it's scratched or dented, it's supposed to be brought to attention, but I see some of our new trucks already got big scratches on them. Already see little dings in the bumper, things like that. How do we monitor if we got somebody that doesn't take care of our property?
Mayor, members of the council, if they have any type of accident, it needs to be reported.
Well, what's an accident? I'm talking about
Backing into, hitting a telephone pole.
throwing
Or-
something in the back of the truck
Yes.
and hitting the
Yes.
dinging the bed up real bad.
Right,
You know,
and that needs-
that's not an accident, so that's not reported.
Right. The director, the manager for those departments, they'd be responsible to do a
Inspection.
inspection of the
Like the
vehicles.
police department, he
Yes.
does that on his vehicles to make sure the interiors
Exactly.
are clean. Do we do that for our work trucks?
We do have in some of the departments in place, but we will work on that also, but that's something that needs to happen, yes.
Because I peered into one and it's a new truck and it's embarrassing already.
Oh.
So I was just curious. And then the last thing I have is warranties. Like on the roof, on all this stuff, when we're talking about, was that under warranty, where do we go? Like on the new HVAC system next door, where's that information stored?
Right, exactly. So I think that's what I want to try to get to. That's, what triggered a lot of this is that when Yvonne and I started helping with the insurance part, is I wanted to make sure that the things in the insurance portal that the values were correct in
Right.
our buildings and our projects. And so that's what triggered this. So yes, all of
Well,
that.
what
stuff-
triggered that was the self-insurance fund, when we were looking at it, and we found out, well, they hadn't done an
Correct.
audit in 25 years.
Correct.
Yeah, to say, hey, how much is this stuff worth? So that's what we're doing on that end. But I wonder if there's some way, because we have issues with every air conditioning system that we've put in anywhere. We have things that break, things that whatever, and then we go back to find out, is it under warranty?
Mayor, in capital projects, when we finish a project or we've been trying to put that on a calendar so that we can keep track of when warranties are going to expire and make sure that we do some walkthroughs to ensure there's not a thing that needs to be addressed before that warranty expires. I noticed that there's a lot of,
Before they expire.
before they expire, or even like some of the pumps that we buy that are very expensive, you know, if they say a pump went out, I want to make sure they know when they
Right,
purchased it.
because we've had that, it was just inside of warranty. Well, that brings to mind, we need to send somebody over to Mitchell Meadows. I see a piece of trim on one of the new houses is loose. So I don't know if that's a warranty item. It's things like that you know, that, I know we got so much going on, but if we have these warranties to make sure these things were, that they were put on properly, that they've maintained, that we don't let those warranties slip.
And part of the project management software, Smart Sheets, we're going to make sure that that's part of what we program into the overall project and keep track of those type of things for the major capital projects. But as far as equipment, you know, that's expensive, as far as pumps and those type of things, mostly the managers are responsible. But it is my first question, you know, when did we purchase it? We like to keep track, make sure that we're not just buying it just if
Okay,
there's
good.
still-
I'm glad we're on that, because I know this new roof that Bernadine's gonna be getting that's a high dollar item, and then this is a high dollar item. And so far, it seems to be working beautifully. And that's, as you go in, it's the first house on the left, up on the top far left of the house, the
But
trim's falling.
You bring up a good point, Mayor. So when we have, is that, who from the village, or is that Kylie's job as Berkshire Hathaway to look at those kinds of things? Because we, as a village, we do not want our properties looking bad. I mean, that would be a death sentence for us.
I don't know, I can't remember. I thought that the inspections were on,
Mayor Crawford, members of the council, part of it was Kylie, if somebody has boxes or whatnot outside their property, Kylie, that was her responsibility, but also if, like today, we have somebody working on one of the units, a warranty work, and John's up there, so we'll have John and Levi also look at our
we need to make sure
properties.
I don't know who it is, but
Yep.
it's just simple things like that, that trim, once it gets loose, and it looks like it just came loose from the wind
Yeah.
or whatever, because it's way up high. But, you know, once that starts, and then you have to come back and replace it. So it's just who's watching.
And the tenant, their process is to inform Kylie, and then she has a maintenance company, but we'll continue to look at those also.
Well, it's kind of like the guy that's got a new truck that's already trashed the inside of it. That's,
Yeah.
you know, that's just the way he operates. And so, but we want to maintain our stuff.
And we can't depend on the tenants to tell us what's going on with their properties, because
No.
sometimes oh, well, so it's coming loose. We want
Absolutely.
that taken care of.
And Mayor and Council, I think we're, just to make sure I'm following up, I think we're talking about two issues. We're talking about our public-facing facilities that are being managed, and then we're talking about our internal facilities. And so usually that clearinghouse, as Jenny mentioned, as we create more laserfish adjustments and get training.
Is that French?
Whatever it is, laserfish, it's.
Laserfish.
Fish, I don't know.
Laserfish.
It's got the E at the end of it, so. Whatever documents we have in there with the bells and whistles, and once we learn them, so the warranties you're talking about as things go in, those are gonna be alerting us. And so each independent manager, hopefully at the end, once we get training, should be able to see all of those things, and annually, we should be going through them, so.
Yeah, but I mean, it's just like we have carpet through here that comes loose. Over at the convention center, we had those squares put in 3-4 years ago. There are some loose, and you're getting ready to replace those. You know, how do we make sure that the installation warranties are good? Because usually those are for a year on a lot of different things like that, that we just don't forget about those things. And the person seeing it, that manages it, may not even know when it was put in. So where is that central point? And then we may need to communicate to our managers, directors, that when you have these things, call this person, see if these things are under warranty, instead of just assuming and then scheduling it for a repair. It's a little extra steps, but anyway, I was just curious, because I know we've had some stuff we didn't know if it's under warranty or not.
Right, and Mayor and Council, just with the clerk's office administering the titles, and also Yvonne's making sure it's on the insurance, and that's been working great, so we're all up.
And vehicle
Yeah.
recalls, I mean,
Yes.
on transmissions, on those Chevys, you know, I noticed I got one the other day, certain models, to recall on the transmission, you need to get in there and get it done, and things of that nature. So I just didn't know who's watching that stuff, and who gets the notice in the mail.
So when anything that has to do with a vehicle, the front office brings it to us.
Okay.
And then we distribute the notice of recall. We go in and we look to see who that vehicle, what department that vehicle is assigned to, and we forward the recall notice or whatever it is to them.
Okay, and is there any follow-up to see if it's gotten done?
We do not.
Do not, I mean, I know that it happens. I got a traffic ticket that's buzzing in my head that today's the day I got a call on it. And I should have taken care of it last week, but I got busy, and I just see that happening a lot.
Right, and I don't have a clear plan in my head on how to integrate all of that right now so far.
Yeah, and that's what it is, right there.
But I do
Manages
know
the
that we
fleet.
need, that the
Oil
asset
changes,
management part is
yada,
important.
yada, yada. Okay. Enough on that, because
Wouldn't
it's,
that be our mechanic?
yeah, but who is that person?
Just, Mayor Crawford, members of the council, for, the streets department has a mechanic.
Yep.
And solid waste and others, and that's something also that we can, our safety officer.
Well,
We
we
could
went
use-
through that sometime where we were, the police department was sending them somewhere, and then we started doing them in-house, I thought, out at,
The airport.
at the, Adams deal, at the Jerry Parsons and those guys, when they were doing their fleet management, that we were gonna change the fuel farm out there, that we were gonna start doing oil changes there. Did we ever do that?
No, not
Okay,
that.
so who's doing the oil changes?
Yep. They send them to the local vendors.
Hometown?
That's where I see all the police cars go.
Okay.
So I just got a text from Yvonne. She said, I can send recalls to the departments instructing them to make appointments. I can keep a recall spreadsheet that triggers a follow-up.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay.
Just to make sure that we get those done, because these guys are too busy doing their jobs a lot of times to figure out the paperwork, and if their admin's covered up or it's not integrated into their daily workload, then it just gets lost.
Yeah.
Okay. And the transmission is $9,000, so I'm just letting you know that. So, okay.
My next goal is a real property management system to create a master property list of all village-owned properties, real property, easements, water rights, et cetera.
That's a huge deal.
What's that?
That's huge.
It is, but, I have, when Ashley and Christella give me a call and they're looking for a water right or an easement, I find myself literally just going through boxes and randomly trying to find these things, and I just want to get better control.
No, I agree with you when we find out that there's houses built on our easements,
Correct.
or that our roads are in somebody else's yard.
Yep.
And that some of our deeds and some of the stuff that we have that should be filed with the county, I want to make sure I have that piece of paper that shows the instrument number, that it was filed with the county.
And we've had that happen where the citizen has it where it was approved by the village, but it never was filed at the county.
Correct.
So did it really happen? Yeah, okay, good. That's a big job.
It is, and how does, if we don't have everything down, our property in our village, how is it that, like, let's just say Dick with forestry to thin our property, does he know every piece of property in our village that we own that needs to be thinned?
He knows the bulk of them. I mean, I'm sure there's little niches of stuff, but if it becomes overbearing, he can ask and find out. He gets access to
Okay,
that information.
I was just wondering.
But we have little things on easements that were, or vacated properties or whatever that were done but never filed, and then we're still dealing with them now. We just dealt with some the last couple of months, that it just never was followed through.
Yeah, we had a resident also on a roadway said that it was
Yeah.
his property is right in the middle of the roadway, and Zach provided us an opinion that road's been there for 60 years, so I mean, it's a roadway, so.
Yeah.
But we'll do a title search if needed on any type of property easement. We'll do a title search and do that also.
And we got a big education in Upper Canyon with all the easements and right-of-ways.
Yeah. Oh,
that we were
yes.
needing, how messed up that was. So that's a bulk of them right there. So-
Even Paradise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we vacated that one piece of property.
Yep.
so that James Russ could get the property sold, and then the client dropped him and got another agent, sold the house, and now it's up for sale again.
And the other area is Fern Trail, so.
Yeah, and Fern
some of
Trail.
you remember, that one's been
For sure.
it's a rough.
That's a lot of work, Jenny and Yvonne.
Well, it's gonna take time, yes, but, I mean, as another example, I have boulders in that back room in my office, water rights confidential. Well, what if Christella or Ashley's been looking for that stuff and I have it? I don't know why it's in there, but they need to know it's in there, or they need to have it in their office.
I agree.
So it's just a variety of different kind of records that are in that room that need to go to the correct places and be managed differently than they have been.
Yep. It can't be out of sight, out of mind.
That's dangerous.
Yeah.
And then the last one is continued education for the clerk's office. Any continuing education I need as a clerk, and then getting Yvonne on that road to designation as a certified clerk, and then master later.
So how do you find the municipal league clerks training? Is that exceptional, useful, or?
It is. COVID changed it in some ways, but I do feel like the New Mexico Municipal League is getting that back on the track they need. I do believe that I have a lot of confidence in the International Institute of Municipal Clerks and their training, and some of their online training and their on-site trainings, which always involves travel, but it is what it is. But I do feel like the training that the league has provided in the past is beneficial, and I know that they're trying to.
Do you think they have the right person in there training them? The lady at Rio Rancho, she's the one that's always at the meetings. I wonder, is she the go-to person?
She's the president of the Clerks Association. I'm not sure what her capacity is right now with all of that. Before, the league had a director that planned all of the clerks' training and managed all, and they don't have that right now. So it's my understanding that the president of the Clerks Association is being charged with that, but it's also my understanding too that all clerks in general are supposed to be helping each other and setting up trainings and bringing in the people that we believe can provide the training. But it's also my understanding too that the league is looking at bringing in a position again of a.
Okay, I'll find out. I was just curious because I know she's the
It
clerk
used to
for
be,
Rio
it used to be
Rancho.
better. It used to be, it was better back.
Listening to her talk, and then I just was curious. Okay, I'll find out.
Okay. And that's all I have.
Okay,
You have a lot.
yeah.
You may see some of it again on here next year, but I promise to find some progress.
Well, most of this is ongoing. It's a
It
work
is,
in progress.
But next year, at this time, when I come before you, I should be able to show, and will be able to show that I at least have something in place, progress being made.
Okay. Thank you very much. Good morning, Mama.
Good morning.
I wasn't trying to say anything derogatory for sure, but
You are the mama.
I just said everybody, yeah. So good morning.
Good morning. Okay, so first thing is the HR organizational chart. And I was able to get an additional position this past year, and I'm so grateful for that. My staff is doing amazing.
Yeah.
They're learning a lot, they've learned a lot, they're continuing to learn a lot. And I'm excited about this next year because I know that this is going to help free me up to work on some of the higher level stuff that has been critical for the village that we'll talk about. So my first goal on my tactical plan is to continue to provide training and development opportunities for our staff, to develop skills and knowledge, to gain confidence and grow, be able to hopefully promote within the organization. Resources needed, we're just going to need to continue with our partnerships with the NMU, Ruidoso. New Mexico Edge has some online classes that we can enroll in and take. Vector Solutions is an online portal with a lot of different training areas, business leadership, project management, safety and OSHA topics. And then the risk management team of the Self-Insurers Fund, they are offering a great deal of on-site training that we can choose from. They came down and did the annual harassment training and bullying in the workplace training a couple of months back. We have a partner of the league down here yesterday, today, and tomorrow doing competent person training for trenching and excavating and confined space. So we've got some employees over there getting that training done. But they really do have quite a bit, and they're willing to come down, and there's no cost to us. It's just a matter of us reaching out and getting it scheduled for our staff. And then we just need employee engagement and director support. I know Ron and Michael are supportive of getting any training we can for our staff. We do have Dina, our legal counsel, our additional legal counsel, coming down at the end of February to do some manager and supervisor training, and do some stuff with public safety. So we're looking forward to that. But steps needed to achieve the goal is just to continue to coordinate training opportunities, utilizing our resources. We also want to create a formal 40-hour supervisor training course to really get these new supervisors ready for their new role. Sometimes we feel like they're the right person, we put them out there, but they don't always have all the skills. None of us have all the skills. But helping them learn how to coach and discipline and identify unsafe situations out there, resolve conflicts, figure out what do I do when I get a grievance? What do I do when I have an unhappy employee? So that'll be great to get some kind of formal process. And we can even bring in directors to help with that, and of course, our safety coordinator, myself. And then we want to create training plans for employees to strengthen skills in a specific area. If someone's struggling with public speaking or communication or whatever the case, we can identify training that person needs to help build that confidence in that area. And then just working with managers to see what additional training needs we're not hitting the mark on, and we can identify those resources. Any questions on that one?
No.
Okay.
Great job.
I do have one little question on the portion over here, because I've seen those notices that you send out as far as the safety trainings that, when you just mentioned, were confined spaces and such. So I was just wondering, it says in your email or on your flyer to register. So I was wondering, was that a self-voluntary registry, or is that also like a department head, say, looking at his department, say a certain individual really needs to take this particular session and essentially tells them that they should take this session,
Yes.
or is
Yeah. We
it
would get-
voluntary?
Counselor Mayor, we would get director input on that and figure out who needs that specific training in that
Great.
department.
Okay, thank you.
Not all of us are going to need those type of trainings, but water distribution, the treatment plant, and those type of employees would need that. It would be very beneficial for them to go
Okay,
through it.
great, thank you.
The next goal is to develop a more formal process for succession planning. We talk about succession planning a lot. We know that we have some really critical vacancies up and coming, several of them. And so we just need to put a training plan on paper. We need directors to update their succession plans for 2024. And we need to be sitting down with leadership and directors and myself and figuring out training plans and paths, career paths, you know, for these individuals, and follow-up to ensure that it's happening. We do get busy in our day-to-day operations, and we all know it's critical. We all talk about it all the time, but we're going to have to sit down and put these plans in place and follow through that they're actually occurring.
It's pretty important.
Yeah.
Mayor, Council, I actually think this may be one of our biggest challenges facing the village in the next year.
Yep.
Well, because in some areas, we don't have people that want to, that can, take over, you know, and, or some of them are all the same age, and there'll be multiple retirements and departments, but we need to figure out a way to develop leadership and.
Mayor, in orientation, I always talk to the new hires about opportunities with the village, so we can get them thinking in that mindset, you know, and encourage them that if they get out there and they love what they're doing, they're very interested in learning more, that they're having those conversations with their manager or director. And if they're not having the conversations, then we need to be having those conversations with those individuals and say, hey, we like what we see. Are you interested in X?
And it's certainly important that the director has that drive to look at their people and see who is a potential to come up so that the training, it helps them become a success and that maybe they feel more confident in taking over after the director leaves. So I think it's a buy-in with the directors too, that just because you're training them for my job, it doesn't, I don't know, what's a word, I don't want them to feel threatened that somebody's going to take their job. But to me, a good director is training their people so that in case they're not there, they can take over.
Absolutely, absolutely. Sharing that knowledge, making sure that transfer of knowledge is happening it's only going to strengthen the organization.
Absolutely.
So, and then the third goal, the third goal would be to implement a risk assessment program to improve our safety and health performance, reduce injury rates and costs associated with accidents. I personally want to learn more on the risk side of things. That's kind of a personal goal of my own. But in looking at the numbers and how can we decrease our costs. I have a lot to learn in that area, but I know I have the resources to help me with that. But I think what happens is we have an employee accident, everyone notifies who they're supposed to notify, and we, hopefully we don't have an injury, but, you know, we have costs associated with damage that needs to be repaired. But we need to take a more granular look at the accidents and find out why it's, you know, what accidents are occurring, why it's happening, and identify what training needs are out there to
So are we
eliminate.
tracking what's the majority of the accidents are? So that we can either work on training or safety procedures?
Mayor, I think we need to do a better job at that. That's exactly what I think we need to do. We need to take some key players and monthly sit down and look at these accidents and find out why did it happen? Was it negligence? Were we in a
Well,
hurry?
and I can see in the winter times, especially Parks and Rec guys, I see them out there on the ice cleaning the sidewalks, and I don't know how many times they've fallen. I've never heard, but, you know, are there safety equipment that we can get, the strap-on cleats, you know, I mean, or is it a non-issue? And then, you know, are we lost time accidents? What are those? And I don't hear that many of them. Are there a lot of those? Usually it's somebody sick, COVID.
For example, on our end of the year OSHA log, we had 5 recordable accidents. So that had days away from work or restricted and transferred duty.
Were they all very similar or were they all different? I mean, I can see somebody carrying something and stepping off a curb wrong, throwing their back out.
Yeah.
But is it,
They were all different, I have to say.
okay, so it's not handling a certain type of equipment, it's,
Right.
okay.
But those are only the 5 that are required to be reported. We did have quite a few accidents, and we need to just look at what it is that's occurring and why, and what training we need to do for either that department or village-wide. Just to create more awareness and decrease the accidents.
Okay, yeah, I agree. Okay.
My 4th goal is to implement a training plan for the HR staff. They're learning a lot on the day-to-day operations and how to keep functions going, onboarding, benefits administration, that kind of thing. But I need to get more in-depth with them and provide training on the legal side, making sure that they understand local, state, and federal laws, make sure that they have training in the major functional areas of HR,
Confidentiality,
confidentiality, yes.
Chinese wall with their significant other. You know what a Chinese wall is? It's this mythological legal term that lawyers use when they represent this guy that's suing me, but he's also my lawyer. So he has a Chinese wall that it doesn't exist as communication. So what I'm saying is, when you're talking about confidential information with employees, whether it's health issues, those kind of things, that they know they don't go home and talk to their significant other about it.
Right.
That's what y'all do, cover that a lot?
We do. We
Okay.
cover confidentiality. What I do need to do more of is get them some more, bring training
And
in.
when is it a breach of confidentiality and when it's not? When they're talking to you, it's not. But when they're talking to another person, I walk in, the counselor walks in and says, hey, that's confidentiality breach, I can't do that, that kind of thing.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we just want to make sure that we don't let things slip out that shouldn't.
Sure.
Anyway.
Okay. And then I need to go and sit for my PHR exam. I've taken the 4-month course. I took it last spring. Need to study.
What does the P stand for?
Professional in HR, yeah. Just need to continue to study so I can feel confident to go sit for the exam, but it's going to be a lot of focus on training this year in my department and village-wide. And then the last goal is to create some internship program. We're looking at 3 types of internship programs, possibly a high school internship program, a college internship program, and then a graduate program, where these students can come on board, learn skills, possibly do rotations through departments, probably for the high school students, for the college and graduate, whatever their field of study is, let's get them into a program there, whether it's a summer internship, holiday break, or, they've graduated and we want to get them in here to job shadow, not to be stuck filing or answering phones, but to actually be with the director or manager watching the.
Well, hopefully you're
functions.
training, but you're also developing some excitement for the position.
Absolutely.
And so you can't get that if you're just filing all day long or answering the phone. So funding for those positions, we'll need to look at where do we get that money?
But, I'll use Judy's position as an example. The assistant finance director, how long have we been trying to recruit for that? This individual, we're not always going to have that individual walk into our doors and
You
want
may
to
have to
interview.
raise it.
We need to go out and find these individuals, and part of this program is partnering with the New Mexico colleges, UNM, NMSU, ENMU, and finding out how, as an employer, we can get in front of these students.
Absolutely.
And get them excited, tell them about our organization, and just spend time with them. Once we have them in, you know, and Michael's worked with me on this. We've had a lot of discussion on this. He's actually been through a couple different kinds of internships himself. But once we get them in here, hopefully they're going to develop that rapport and that, you know, they're going to feel like they're part of the team while they're learning, while they're gaining all the skills, the hands-on skills.
Well, and if we have open vacancies in these positions, we're funding them anyway through FTE, so that, some of that funding could be used for that position.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
The voice from above.
Yes, go ahead.
Real quick,
Are you in the bathroom?
in my, I'll show you.
Sounds like he's in the bathroom.
In my former occupation, we partnered with Workforce Solutions.
Yes.
And they were paying
Yes.
people while they were doing the internship, so that's just another funding.
Yep, good idea.
Well, they pay some of it.
Well, like mine, they pay all of it for the
Oh, do
summer.
they?
For they, for so many months or
We
whatever
did-
they'll pay for
I
it.
did that at the bank too, and they pay for some of their salary, and then the bank pays for some of their salary. So that,
It's a good
that's
idea.
it's a
And
great
that's something we'll
idea.
look into also. I've used those programs before also, and so.
Okay.
Mayor and council, as part of this, I think the other thing, when we start partnering with universities, we'll also be looking at possible credit as a form of payment as well. And so most of the universities and some high schools are now requiring credit or a certain level of accomplishment in order to graduate or to finish their programs. So if we can get true MOUs in place for some of those kinds of things, that would also act as kind of a recruitment tool.
Yeah.
Is there any way, just since you mentioned the high school, that you could maybe talk with the schools and talk about an elective? You know, like working over here or coming over and being a part of one of the different departments for, say, an hour or an hour and a half would be one of your electives?
That's a great idea,
Could be, just a thought.
right? Especially for the seniors that have half a day.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's an excellent idea.
Mm-hmm.
Can do that.
Well, you got one doing it now, don't you?
Yep.
Yes.
But, you know, Judy's position in finance, that's quite I mean, you're looking at somebody that pretty much specializes.
Well, an accounting major at the very least, but to get to the level we want, we don't have time to raise that person.
Uh-uh.
We're gonna have to go find that person,
Yes.
okay?
Any questions?
Great
No.
plans.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, Carrie was going to come on, but she's got something going on, so she said go ahead and move on to the next one, and then she'll let us know when she's ready.
Well, we're doing her at 11.
Okay, well, it's 11, oh, never mind.
It's 10:30.
I was thinking 11, I was thinking she was an hour ahead. My bad on that.
Yeah, no, she's behind us.
Right, okay. I was thinking 10.
Next, so she'll be ready at 11?
Yes.
Finance, that should take all day.
Good morning.
Morning.
So, I just need to make a little, change to the org chart, now that we split the assistant finance director off of the capital projects manager. We just need to, there's a capital projects manager, and then the project manager, the purchasing agent, and the coordinator. And the assistant finance director will be right under me, overseeing all the departments. And as you can imagine, that is probably the biggest goal, even though you'll see on a lot of my goals, they're kind of repeats. The finance department and utility billing have been in a constant mode of training this year. We've lost 2 staff accountants. We lost the supervisor, UB supervisor, and the UB clerk. So We do have those positions filled, and they are currently, considering that they've only started in November, they have been running quickly, picking up everything. We have the supervisor, Dusty, who has really taken that area by the horns and has fixed a lot of problems that have been coming up. Her clerk, Christy, is a very sharp gal, that we are thinking maybe we can move her in some of the other areas that are a little bit more demanding with her experience and her let me figure it out attitude, and I'll come back and ask you questions kind of deal. So as you know, we did lose our purchasing agent yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that.
Yes, so we will.
Magic trick.
So we will be down another position again. So, again, we'll, if we do have any procurements at the end of this year and going forward, we'll be looking into a contract with Civic Initiatives to help if we have a procurement to get out, if we can't get it out in time.
So Carol left?
Mm-hmm.
Judy, may I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Is there a reason why we've had such a transition with our department? Is it just multiple different things?
So, in utility billing, it
So
was
retirements?
retirements.
Yeah.
Retirements. In the staff accountant position, it was just, one was on probation and another one just moved.
Got it.
And,
Okay.
so it's just been a combination.
Yeah, it is
I mean,
what it
she's
is.
done a lot of interviews, but
Yes.
finding the right person to be able to.
A lot of it
some of
too,
those.
Mayor, as you have said, is sometimes people will want to come from Texas or from Las Cruces, and they think that they have a friend that's going to lend them a cabin, and then all of a sudden it doesn't pan out, and then
Yep.
they're looking for housing and stuff, so.
Well, this is very much detail. You have to really be attentive to detail. And it takes a certain kind of a person.
Yes, so.
Well, the purchasing agent, it can be pretty technical in the beginning, but once you've learned it, but we're a long ways. It wasn't that long ago. Then in the purchasing department, we had one person that even knew how to fill out a requisition and
Right.
purchase order and all that. So we've come a ways for that.
We've come a long ways. Right now, the departments are a little bit more savvy on the process itself. We're getting a lot of help from the directors as far as scope of works, getting what we really want to purchase and stuff.
Sure.
We have transitioned a lot of the requisitions to other people's within the departments, but, it's just that person. Again, it's a detail-oriented position where they have to make sure that the dates are firm, the addendums are getting out, so it's just somebody that's really into detail. So, well, we have begun the look for a purchasing agent, so it'll be advertised, so.
Okay.
So we'll get into the first goal, which is preparing a CAFR. I have contracted with Jim Cox Consulting, which was one of our former auditors who has gone on his own. We have worked together and we have gotten a lot of the schedules for the CAFR. We just ran out of time with the December report based on stuff that was going on with me personally. So that didn't get incorporated, but I'm hoping to get this next fiscal year 2024 audit in the CAFR format, so we'll have a little bit bigger of a report. My next goal is to finish developing the operating manuals that can be given to departments with screenshots and explanations on how to process tasks. Again, we have a lot of the book, but it's not all polished and ready to be handed out. We have actually requested with Ron at the new Horton building to see if we can maybe get a computer lab to where people, we have like 20 computers so that when a new admin person comes in or somebody's changing their position, we can actually get them on the computer and train them there live and hands-on versus just us sitting here and talking to them, well, this is where you go and that. because I think it would be more beneficial when somebody's hired and they're going through their orientation, if finance can sit with them for a couple days and just take them through Encode, because when you get into Encode, I know there's like 50 million ways to get to the same area, but if we had a place where we can be with them one-on-one, to where they could actually physically drive the boat and look to see how everything works, I think that would help us a lot in the long run.
That's a great idea.
And also, it would be if people were needing training, because sometimes when you're doing a Zoom in your office, it's hard because people are coming in, the phones are ringing. Maybe that would be an opportunity for people to go somewhere and actually do the training and stuff, so.
I think it's a great idea.
So, over at Horton, what's the time look like on before that could even happen?
Mayor, members of the council, we're waiting on the final layout.
Right.
Should have that any time, and then they'll go out to bid once White
So,
says.
would we have room after the Wingfield, after
Yes.
Clerk, after?
We have
whatever?
plans for a training area, and we actually have another office that's going to be available, that we could build that into a just dedicated for training, and it's a good-sized
So
office.
even with the new phone that we get in, phone system, some training on how to operate that, make sure that we understand how to operate the software. And because just like you were talking about with Encode, you know, things change and it's easier to operate if you know the shortcuts and you
Yes.
know how to make things work.
And we're also going to have another IT room also. That'll be another backup area that we'll be able to, if something was to happen, we'll have the servers, have a server sit over there that can be able to provide the backup needed, so.
Okay. So that has been in the works?
That's part of that whole final layout that we're working on.
Okay, I must slip in that one. I don't remember us talking about that, but that's a great idea.
And it'd also be an opportunity for the safety officer to have safety trainings and stuff like that, so we could probably bring some very job-specific training to people instead of people just going to random safety classes and stuff, so. The next one is the comprehensive financial planning to help us develop cost of service rates for 5 and 10 years to help with budgeting and planning for capital projects. And this would take some financial advisors and engineers. And this would be going on each year to see if we can maybe develop our service rates and cost of services. And then, of course, the hiring of an assistant finance director. On the resource needed, it should be dependent on qualifications and whatever.
Well, I think that it's time that we look at some experts on that because we've been trying to do everything we've been trying to do. We haven't got the right person.
Yeah.
I know it's going to take something special, so I would like to see in your strategic planning that we go outside to a headhunter, go outside, whatever you want to call these.
Right, that's what I was going to say, like we were trying to in the past.
And so that have a group of folks that we could start recruiting. You know, remember we were looking for, one position and we went out, we couldn't find it, and then we found it and had to wait a while, but that we would at least be making progress on that because you don't have time to do that and all the interviews and different things like that. If we could figure that out, what it's going to take.
Okay.
And it's going to take more than, what's that one I use? Just the ones you use where you sign up on the internet and they send you. It's going to need somebody that really looking for a particular type of person.
They are quite expensive though, aren't they?
Some of them can be, but, look at the time that we've wasted and when she goes off into the by and by,
And Mayor,
we're not talking about heaven just yet.
I know, don't jinx me with my luck this year.
Careful on the way home.
When you leave the meeting, be careful. But what is that expense going to look like? And I'm just saying, it's not, it's just that every department and job has its niches.
Yeah.
But this seems to be a particular one that we're looking for. Now, I talked to other communities that they start off with somebody that has a little accounting experience in high school, and then they start training them, but then they don't have the detail that we have. And then they spend a ton of money on outside firms to come in and help them put the
Exactly.
things together. And, you know, it's just like in your personal finances, the more you do, the less your CPA charges you, unless you're HMR block queen. But those things, I think it's time that we've done that, because you've been looking for a while.
And as soon as you hire that position and get them started, you're going to be in the same situation, because then you're only going to have one person,
Well, that's what I'm saying.
one man deep.
Well, we're
So you,
still-
so that internship,
We still
That we're
keep doing
talking to
that, the
might help.
internship.
Yeah.
But the level of
Yes.
expertise that we're talking about is, you're not gonna train that in a year.
no.
And most of the internship people that we would go after to even be considered for a 2-year piece would be those master level students. So bringing them in a year, 2 years, if you do hire someone immediately, more than likely, we may be in the same position from a retirement perspective. So we know we at least have 2 years to grow somebody into the next level.
Yeah.
And Mayor and Council, we've also, with our auditor, you know, they're out doing audits, we always say, you know, if you see somebody, find somebody, try to, you know, that's how we recruited Judy here through our auditor, through our financial advisor. And then just talking to other entities, and as the mayor knows, they're all having issues trying to find that level of individual to work for government. So those have been tough.
We do not want to get in the position.
Well, I can remember way back, and then we hired, what was her name? We called her Killer.
That was, Nancy Klingman, yes.
She was a hatchet sharpener user. Well, she was rough on both sides and edges. I mean, and then we really got to the point where she did what she had to do, and then we had to take another step to get into fine tuning and keeping us on the path, and that's the thing.
Yeah.
So,
And also Judy prepares our financial statements where, or else the auditor, we'd be paying the auditor to do that, so.
yeah.
So it saves,
But it's handy whenever we have a question, I can just walk down there and say, hey,
yes.
where are we at on this? And she can pull it right up on the screen, and then it gives us a good foundation
No, absolutely.
on how do we make a decision on those things. So I like that ability, and the council certainly does. I know you do. So if we could find a good headhunter, for lack of a better word, give a good job description, and see if, because I know they exist, and we'll get them here. In the meantime, we're still recruitment on internships and other things to get into the department so that they can start doing some training. But everything that we do on succession is training people to be able to do multiple things.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Yep.
So that is the last goal for finance. We'll move into utility billing. We have been working with the village clerk and Zach on developing of a process of applying liens and addressing delinquent accounts. I know Dusty has taken a personal goal of hers is to figure out how we do these liens, where they're at, how many years they've been on and stuff, so they've been developing the process. She's a really go-getter, so I have confidence that she'll be able to, and along with Jenny and Zach, to come up with a process on exactly how the liens are supposed to go, how we're gonna do them, and everything like that, so. Our next goal is to create a one-stop shop for utility customers. Right now that we have the front counter, I know the utility department is going through implementing CityWorks, where all the permits and anything that has to do with hookups, tap fees is gonna be processed through. So although they're gonna be two independent systems, Encode and CityWorks, my team, my girls are gonna get fully immersed in CityWorks so that they can work both software, so that we could create a literally one-stop shop, so that whatever's happening on the utility side, we know what's happening on the billing side, so we don't get caught up with somebody in a location that meter's not getting transmitted or a bill's not getting generated, or a tap fee hasn't been collected even though the meter's out there and stuff. So we're trying to wrestle that all in. So this year, that's going to be Dusty and Christie's, one of their goals is to try to get versed into the CityWorks software.
Mr. Mayor, Judy, just kind of jumping ahead, once we get our IT lab up and going, do either of these two vendors send their own teams for training? I'm trying to think, you're stretched right now, and I'm
Yes.
trying to think of a way that we can lessen that by having someone who's at elbow training, as they call it, so.
Counselor Mayor, prior to COVID, you could get somebody from Encode here for a week or two, and they could train on GL or HR. After COVID, they've kind of gone to just remote training. So sometimes remote training doesn't work.
It doesn't for me.
You have to be in the system and knowing how the system works and understands in order to get the full benefit of the remote training, because a lot of times they're showing you multiple ways to do different things, and if you're not exactly sure how it works already in Encode, you can get lost and just zone out. So they do have something called Tyler University. So we have been starting our people out taking those types of courses. They're 1 or 2 hour courses on how to input an invoice, how to do a service order, like just little things. And then as they become more versed in actually using the system, we're looking into maybe doing some remote training a few hours at a time. But again, you have to give it them somewhere off location, because if they stay up there, the phones are ringing, people are coming in, and the training isn't very productive.
I couldn't agree more.
So as soon as we have another location, that would be great to send some of my people to get a little bit more adept into the ins and outs of Encode.
Thank you.
One of the things that we have done is, which has kind of saved our bacon this year, is
Bacon.
That was a good one.
when Helen was here, she used to input every single department's invoice into the system in order for payment. One of her goals that she did finish before she left was to train all the departments on entering their own invoices. So now everybody enters their own invoices, and all finance does is check the packets to make sure they're correct, and then we update and run the check run. When we were without a staff accountant, and when it was just me and Robin, that kind of saved us to keep the department rolling, because instead of entering 200 invoices between the two of us, we only had to check 10 packages. And it saved us like hours. So stuff like that.
Yeah.
We need to start letting the departments take the brunt of the work and us just review and update in order to keep it real full.
I agree with that. Have we had any instances, in years past, I remember things that got left out, and then I would get a phone call that I still haven't received my check. Remember those? And we would come back. So we're not having that, because that's what would happen before. Some things would get held, or they didn't know what to do with it, or whatever. So now then we've kind of got a system where it just flows.
Yeah, so the departments get the invoices, they enter them. If they don't know what to do with the invoice, they're sending it to us, and then
Okay,
we
and-
enter
And
it.
then you cross-check it with a PO?
They send us the packet, what they entered, the invoices, and then we check all the invoices to make sure everything is correct, the vendor name is correct on the packet. We check the invoice number, the amount, whether it's being charged to the correct PO, we check all that. But you're talking about saving time.
Yes.
Just checking instead of entering of hours. So we accept packets from Monday to Wednesday. We update Wednesday and Thursday, and usually the check run is either already printed by Thursday afternoon or Friday morning, and everything's out by Friday with the mail.
So how do you handle checks that haven't been cashed? I know it says 90 days void.
Now that we've freed up some time, people, Shauna and Christy are really searching the internet for these people. I know Christy has been really successful in finding some of the refund checks off your utility account. Sometimes people don't always tell us where they're moving to, so if they have a refund, it automatically goes to the service address, and because they don't have a forwarding address at the post office, it comes back to us. But she has taken it upon herself to search the internet, and she has been,
What do you do with that money?
it stays in
The general fund?
no, it stays in the utility fund, and then if we do find them, we reissue the check and send it out. However, after a year, this is one of Shauna's tasks, after a year, we'll have to do a reconciliation of all the checks that haven't been cashed, and then we will send them to the state, to the Property Claims
Yes.
Division. That's one of the things we're looking for.
Okay, so I guess I found a check that's a year and a half old.
So if you bring it to us, and we can reissue
It's
it.
only $10, that's the
Well,
problem.
that's better. You know how many 6 and 7 travel reimbursement checks we have of employees? It's a
Yeah.
lot.
And so that it just ends up the state and it sits there and after a while, then the state eats it. Okay. well, I'll
Mayor,
bring it.
Council, one of the issues they've encountered has been the postal service.
Yes.
Checks have gone out and that's just to go to Alamogordo or wherever else, and they're like, we haven't got the check, and they finally get it, but that's been an issue. It's how slow it is. Everything goes to El Paso and then it gets even delivered back, mailed back to here, so.
Well, I've had 2 people tell me that their check, they got a delinquent notice because their check didn't go through.
Oh, they're mailing it
They're
in.
mailing.
Oh, yeah.
And so we are having a little bit, not necessarily the Village of Ruidoso, but just service.
Oh, they mailed it and then by the time we got
Got
it,
it.
their account was delinquent.
Or they never received it, yet you can see on their check stub that they mailed it out.
I used that trick way back when I was in college.
Okay.
I mailed that in. I even got the right date here.
The check's in the mail.
All I know is if I mail something to the mayor from my house, it's 5 days, so
Yeah,
it goes, yes, it
goes
goes.
around the world and
Goes to either Cruces or Albuquerque to be processed and then mailed back, so.
It's all contracted now.
And two, on, some of the people will say, well, I FedExed it to you. Well, we're rural, so just because you FedEx it overnight.
there's no next day.
There's no next
no
day here in
overnight.
Rio,
I
so,
paid for it. Well, I'm sorry.
yeah, you shouldn't have,
smiling.
but,
Money back.
Got a great looking envelope.
yeah, I know, so,
Okay. So are you budgeting the 20 to 50?
Yes, we will be budgeting the 20 and 50 in the 24 budget.
So that 20 to 50 encompasses all your resources needed, or is that per?
All the resources.
Okay.
And
But I
then,
think you need to figure in that,
yeah, I have to get a
you're
quote
gonna
on
add
that.
to that.
You're gonna have to add to that,
Because,
yeah.
we looked at one and it was just unbelievably ridiculous.
I don't
yes.
know if that might be in Cheryl's budget, might be a better place
Well,
for
that
it.
would be nice.
I think it's under her recruitment, but the one the mayor and
Yeah, probably
I,
in her recruitment part.
we got a, first quote was, it was a salary, more than the salary of the
Yeah,
position we were, but we'll look into that.
yeah. Okay. Anybody have any other questions for Judy? Nope. Okay, you going into utility?
And on utility billing, we talked about the liens, working with the clerk and the legal team. And then about the one-stop shop. And then the last one is to look at our bill format, about reviewing it and maybe making it a little bit easier to read, so.
Would be nice.
I still wish we could identify readily, here's what your water is, here's what your, because everybody gets that bill and they,
I think it would help us a little bit when we are looking at rate increases.
and I know that with what's going on at Von Ridge, the issue that they're having, and then we went to tell them before we could annex them, these are the issues that they were freaking out how much it costs. Well, it is what it is.
Yeah.
And we're also working on, and they're aware of it, they were agreement is on their bill, we're gonna be Cristillo's working on that as we speak, is having the amount to cover, like you said, merits, we're not even covering the cost.
No, right now.
So we're going to implement that also. They're willing to pay that, so.
And I think it would just help with, one of the things we're talking about, level of service with, on the
Yes,
solid waste.
waste.
You know, that people really admire what we're doing, but then when they get their water bill, the same people will complain to me about it. And then I have to explain to them that's part of it, and they're, you know, and I'm one that I just pay the bill. I don't even pay attention to it, really. So, but.
There has to be an easier way.
There's got to be a better way, and we've talked about this every year since I can remember.
And plus, nowadays, you know, you can just download another software and manipulate the data whatever way it is. So if Encode can't do it, I'm sure there's a third-party vendor that could get us the bill the way we want it if we can't select from their CAN formats.
Okay.
At this time, I don't know what that cost would be, but in the beginning, it'll just be employee time to do the research to figure out what we want on the bills, so.
Who are you going to task with that? Do you have somebody in mind?
I think between Dusty and Christie, and maybe Robin and Andrew, since they're all a little techie, they might be able to come up with a format.
Okay.
And then if you're ready, we'll go on to
Yep.
IT,
It's 10:50.
and Robin will come up here.
Okay. And then after we get through with Robin, if you'll let Carrie know she's on deck.
So our first goal was the fiber to the homes that we're making some progress on. They're actually in construction in progress, so that's a great deal.
And as of Friday, we had our first subdivision there behind the police department go live.
Oh, really?
We're trying to get the graphics correct so that we can get it to Carrie Gladden to get the information out to the public. The first graphics I got from Greg, our tech, were just thumbnail prints that weren't quality good for Facebook.
Are they putting door hangers up?
Not at this time, because it's only the two techs who are helping put up everything, but I'm not exactly for sure what their approach is. So Mike Johnson from Windstream is trying to get with everyone, especially with Johnny Montoya being, I think he's still out just for a little bit, to see exactly what the game plan's going to be so that they can get to those residences. But those services are live, and I do have a map of the area that is live so that we can get the information out and let the public know. But I'm waiting on better thumbnail prints so that we can get something up that's a much better graphic for the area that is live, and so that was very
There's aggressive
exciting.
campaign from Verizon, from T-Mobile, and even from
TDS,
TDS.
all on
That
Facebook.
they're trying to tie you into a contract, offer you the moon and the
Right.
stars. So that's what we've asked repeatedly.
Right.
Give us a section of where you're headed next so the homeowner
Right.
can make informed decisions.
So anyway, I have the area and the map, and once I have better thumbnails, I will have them over to Carrie Gladden immediately so that we can let the public know that this area is up live and ready to be connected to your home.
Because they're going like $39.95 for the first 3 months, and then it goes $69.95. But you have these other phone companies on the 5G and the other stuff that they're doing, I guess is 5G, that they're trying to tie people into contracts,
For long-term and,
annuals.
Right.
And so and that's what they're calling, well, if it's going to be here in the next month, 2 months, but if it's going to be a year, I'm going to go and sign the contract.
correct.
And so those are things, because we were told, almost promised, it was going to be December that they were coming out.
December 28th was the date that.
Yeah,
Right.
that Montoya sat right in here or
Correct.
there and told us that was going to happen. And so I know the heart attack and all that stuff, but, or
So
whatever.
we do have the subdivisions kind of behind the police department are live and ready to be connected to the home. And so.
That's it, that's all you know.
That's all I know. I do have a map.
But ready
But
is
it's
a
like
relative
on my
term.
phone,
Yeah.
and, you can't hardly read it, and it's more of a thumbnail clip than anything. So-
Robin, Mike has a number for Donald Hobbs.
Yes.
So that's the gentleman, he's supposedly the general manager for this area.
Correct.
He's out of Hobbs. But
Donald Hobbs from Hobbs?
he's from Hobbs.
Yes.
And I've asked them to be at the council meeting on the 13th also to provide some additional information to bring their marketing firm or their team but they're still not providing that. And that's what I told them. When people are ready to connect, you're going to lose customers because you're not aggressive on it.
Exactly.
So we need to call Donald up and he took, what's his name, Kenneth's place? Ken?
Ken Kennedy.
And say that, we need the
He
information.
needs to come prepared to give us,
Yes.
whatever you want to call them, neighborhoods that are in line, who's next?
Right.
So people can see what's happening, and if not, we'll have to call Danny Ferguson again.
Right, and I think that may be where we are, because sometimes they're getting it to Carrie Gladden, and I get information more from Carrie sometimes than what I'm getting from Windstream to provide updates to you and the council.
I don't get anything.
I know, and so it was, the last update I had was what I received from Carrie, and that was more off of Facebook, so it's.
Because I know there's been all kinds of, Cascade's been everywhere.
Right,
And then they were trenching over here on, by the Elegante, over by the convention center. They've been all up and down, Country Club and White Mountain Drive and those areas. And so it looks like something's getting ready to happen. And they're working on weekends and cold days, so I know they're putting it in.
right.
They are
If we
working.
had what areas.
Where
and
they are,
estimates.
where they're going, and where they're headed would be very nice to know.
Yep.
So, anyway, that's where we are with the fiber to the homes, the updates that I have. The next thing that we have is the evaluation of our phone system, because the current one we have is almost 10 years old. Most everyone now, the whole program is, we'll provide you your phone system along with your phone service, which is different from our internet service. And the bottom line, what they need to know is how many phone numbers we have and how many extensions we have, and they will provide us with the quote that will encompass everything. The only thing that is pretty much holding us back is identifying actually how many working phone lines we have that are not pulled into our network, and that stems from over 10 years ago, 12 years ago, when we switched to the first step of the upgrade we had in our phones that were done by the previous IT manager and Jeff Kaplan when he was here. They never turned off a whole bunch of old phone lines. And so I have been consolidating, identifying phone lines. This has taken almost 2 years. and
Well, I remember we talked about that.
Yeah.
That we were identifying.
we're very close to being done. And so, but the biggest time right now, or lack of time, has been the obstacle at the moment, because we've been so shorthanded in finance. But we've been working on it, identifying
Wouldn't the
them.
contractor be coming in? Couldn't we task them with that? That if we picked one, the system, that they come in, they do the installation, they identify?
Mm-hmm.
Because remember what happened last time, when we started cutting lines, then we found out
Right,
that we needed that one, or it was still a landline, it needed to be converted.
Correct.
The numbers,
right.
that people were still getting messages to old message centers that were
That's
non-existent.
just it. If we cut off a phone line and we absolutely need it, that's where, that's what we're trying to.
And then, did we ever get the question answered on security system fire alarms? They had to be a landline?
They do not have to be a landline anymore, because that was something that was passed by the state legislature a year or two ago. They can be cellular, or they can be over fiber. We have been testing those certain things. The village, we've gone cellular here at Village Hall and a couple of other locations, which makes it very nice.
As long as
So-
Verizon's working?
As long as Verizon's working. We have been working with, on that same note, with Windstream. We have installed, we had Verizon backup here at Village Hall for if Windstream ever went down, but we've learned that Windstream goes down, Verizon goes down.
Yeah.
So at key locations at the moment, in 5 of our major locations across the village, Horton Complex, the Convention Center, Village Hall, the Police Department, and the Fire Department, we have installed TDS backup, because that is on a different network, comes in from a different pathway into the village. So we have installed TDS backup, and it is being tested this week and next week to make sure that we have redundancy, so that if Windstream goes down, we will be up on TDS. And it comes through from our Verizon, our Windstream bill and it will work off of our Windstream network so that if those Windstream goes down, we will be up on TDS.
And how do you switch that?
It automatically happens.
Okay, and so that will be village-wide?
That, we will get it village-wide once we know it's working correctly on all of these networks. I picked the critical locations to start with so that we can make sure it was up and operating correctly, because knowing that Windstream didn't work right, I wasn't going to switch everything over until I knew all of this was working correctly first. And
Because
so,
I know in some areas, the radio station,
correct.
in town, it's Windstream. At the tower,
It's TDS.
TDS.
Yes.
So it's, some of it's going to be location applicable or whatever, but, and they have to do that, reset and do that physically. So you're saying that when one drops, the other one automatically goes
And we're
over.
going to look at the tower to see, because there's also Windstream up at the tower also, so I'm not sure. Certain things were hooked up just because somebody made a phone call and made a connection and
Sure.
not necessarily didn't go through what I did. And so we have extra service over at the radio station right now, so trying to make sure what we've got, we have extra service at the radio station right now, so before we turn anything off, I need to make sure everything's going correctly so we don't take them off the air by mistake when I shut something off. So we have 2 phone bills.
How do they test that? You have, when you get your phone bill, you have a list of lines showing what you're paid for.
Right.
And then if we're going basically VoIP, is that what it is?
Yes, we
And
have,
then
we
just
have,
rotate
we
the
have
numbers
almost
over?
700 phone lines from what I counted.
What?
Yes, numbers, not necessarily phone lines, but 700 numbers
So,
assigned
Robin,
to us.
Sorry, real quick, most of the vendors that are doing VoIP or that are gonna transition to VoIP will give you your phone tree. Have they done those with the active and inactive lines with the number of systems?
They've said, okay, we're giving you 20 DIDs for this particular
So we
setup.
should be requiring them to provide that phone tree line to
That's what
determine? Okay.
I'm working with
Because I know you
them.
mentioned it's taken 2 years, but they
I'm-
should do that in like 2 weeks.
Right,
They
but
should
I'm
do
working with them every other week right now with Windstream to get this done. We also have some other programming errors that came in from when we first initially set up the fiber that caused the 911 issue. There's some other programming errors that have occurred as I've
And
done a
that
deep
was
dive into the
old
phone bill.
technology, not talking to new technology, that some
Correct.
of it was still cable or
Right.
copper?
So there's things that you guys don't see that show up on the phone bill that really don't affect anything having to do with public service or anything else that I've seen, that I'm making them identify and clean up before we go forward. And they're like, even, you guys have way too many DIDs and we need to clean this all up. So we're trying to identify everything so we can get rid of it.
But can they
And-
give us a master, so just so that everyone is aware, can they give us that master tree so that we can see what that looks like?
I don't think
Because-
they could at this point. That's
They
part of the problem.
should.
They should be able to, and that's what we're
So let's-
working, that's what I'm trying and attempting to do. I have 3 people from Windstream I'm working with trying to get all this figured out. And because we have probably 35 phone bills or more are flowing into one phone bill, and each phone bill may have other phone bills flowing into it, it's a huge, huge mess. And trying to get this all broken out and unconsolidated and reconsolidated has been an issue that is ongoing, and it's,
What, in my mind, because I'm getting a cramp, is
Yes.
you're saying you have Parks and Rec, you have
Yes.
whatever over here, they each had their own phone number.
yes, and phone
Okay,
bill.
And then we got, but then the village paid the bill. What we're talking about now is having consolidated numbers with
Right.
extensions?
Right. And what we're trying to make sure everybody has exactly what they need and have the correct phone number so that if they call here, we can transfer over there, which is the capability we have now. And when that was first initially set up, a lot of old phone numbers were never, ever disconnected. And so we still have all of those. And,
Paying so much a line, too.
correct. And so we've got a lot of extra things in there and we're trying to identify it. And then we've overlaid it with other programming for other things as this system's grown.
What kind of money, do we have any idea of what we're spending on all of this?
I have, we.
Is it $5 grand a month, 10
Oh,
grand?
gosh, no, we're close, telephone-wise is probably close to 7-8 grand a month, and then you've got the internet stuff on top of it, the fiber on top of it, which is running close to around 30. And we can clean it all up and bring it all down, hopefully.
Well, it
And,
sounds like we need to identify what phone system we want to use,
and
task
hopefully,
them with it.
yes, and hopefully with what we're talking about, we can bring all of the pricing down by going to a new phone system, because it will also eliminate the service agreement that we pay for our phone system now in order to keep it running, because if a phone goes down, we were under a service agreement right now to send it in and get it replaced. And so it doesn't cost us anything, because at first, when a phone went out, people were like, they were just throwing them away, because, okay, they didn't realize it was under a service agreement, we could get it replaced and brought it back in. Now everybody knows if your phone goes down, call Andrew, because he'll either attempt to fix it because it's a IT issue, and then if it doesn't work, we'll call the company that supports it, and we'll get another phone in to replace it, and it doesn't cost us anything.
Yeah, ours would have a lifetime warranty. I had no idea.
Yeah, well, and the new, what we're looking at, I've had at least 4 to 5 companies who are all on some sort of state pricing agreement or a national pricing agreement that we work with, that your phone service includes your phone.
Yes,
Right,
absolutely.
and that is what the new court went with, and it brought down their phone bill dramatically. And they got all brand-new equipment.
So we don't have resources besides employee time. Is that something we need to change positions with and start looking at putting money to it to go ahead and go out for bid on these phones?
I don't, possibly, it's a discussion we can have at a little later time.
Well, it
We don't
sounds
have
like to
do
me, you don't have time to do it.
I don't have, I'm close to the end, so it's like, we've got,
What-
if we can
Council,
probably,
Sorry, Ryan.
What about you, we used, what was his name, that helped us with the fiber?
he asked a lot of questions and sent us a bill, and he has not gotten in touch with us since January of last year.
What was his name, Herman?
Herman, right.
He has not gotten in touch with us since January of last year after,
Thanks for the payment.
Mayor and council.
Yeah.
But
it's been
those are things that we need to know.
I
Exactly.
think, I may
my
get,
experience
I was
that-
gonna say, maybe if Michael and I had a conversation, because he's asking questions afterwards that may help me a lot.
It's been my experience, so I've done 2 of these. One with a large organization that was like 15,000 phone lines that went to 400.
Mm-hmm.
And then another one that we had about 80 phone lines that went to like 7.
Yeah.
And that was for a municipality that was larger than this, but similar in size. And so usually if you go out to bid, the contractor that's taking over should do a full evaluation of your phone system. Once you do the phone system evaluation, they'll be able to come back and say, this is what you really need, this is what you don't need, we'll switch out your phones, this is how much it'll cost. And then based on that, now, there will be a cost to that initial assessment.
Well, there should be a savings realized pretty
But
quick.
there will, very quickly. So if we're at 700 line, I get that you mean the branches.
Right.
The main lines will probably go back down to 10 or 15. Branches, depending on the number of departments we have, they'll reassess. Our phone bill plus our internet bill should drop significantly. And so what you pay in the contract for them to do the initial evaluation, yes, it's going to be upfront money, but we should see a realization easily over the next year.
Well, it seems like we're asking you to do something that is a specialization from these phone companies. That's why I think that we should look
Yeah.
at, go out to
Well,
bid
that's-
Let's-
what-
and then
Michael
evaluate the
and I visited-
company, and then have them do all this assessment, and then we evaluate the results that we get off of it. This is what we want to do, instead of trying to figure out how to go through and, it's like
Yeah,
what do you call the historic accounting? What was it? You're going back through time, what everybody
just
did to
doesn't
patch the
matter.
system, and that's a waste of your time, I think.
Yeah, we need to
but-
let somebody else, and we
Yeah.
went through that, Mayor, and I know you were part of that committee when we did the change order on the phones. I thought they had a list of all the numbers and at that time, so
Yeah.
this
Right,
is all,
and so we've got new numbers based on the fact that we placed this order, and they automatically gave us 20 new numbers. And when I went in through the phone bills, I was like, okay, why do now all of a sudden I have these 500 phone numbers or 700? When I added them up, I was like, this, and they even said, okay, we've got to eliminate some, so.
Okay, with these, so the phone system, does that include the cell phones as well?
No.
No,
And those are all, and the employees that need them, get them. And it's like on council, if you want them, I have one, just for IPRAs and things like that. So that does not include that. But I would like to be able to move forward, because I've had this discussion, we've had this numerous times, is let's move forward with going out for a bid, because we have the internet, the fiber here at the building. We have the fiber all over our other offices, is what I've been told a dozen times, except for, we still don't have it at the Wingfield House.
Exactly.
It was installed at the Wingfield House last week. We've got to complete the turn-up and installation of the rack. I was told that. I'll get with
It's
Lee.
like Chinese.
I know.
I mean, I don't know what that
So
means.
who's doing that? Is that Systems MD?
Systems MD, I'll get with Leor to see where we stand with that. We also will be, there is a meeting this week for, with the BLM and Windstream to have upgraded fiber potentially going out to Fort Stanton. And when they go out to Fort Stanton, we will have,
Redundancy.
we will have a drop out at the airport because yes.
Okay, but that is,
But,
that
and
ain't
that,
today. That,
no.
I mean, that's this much of the deal. We're not saying you're that much over there.
right,
boy.
but
What I'm
we,
saying is, let's get started on this.
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, I had to move it because it sounds like we're just piling it on Robin, and then she could be a lot more effective in the finance department instead of dealing with IT on that
Phone
end
sy-
of it.
Exactly, with the phone systems, yeah.
So,
And so we'll make that work.
anyway, okay. So moving then on to Office 365, and this, we're going to be moving forward with an upgraded 365 version in March, hopefully, starting that, which when we had the McBride fire, lack of communication or being able to get to email sometimes or communication was hampered by the fact that the servers were down here at Village Hall when we lost power, and having Office 365 based on our server will now be based on the cloud. So we will not lose the communication through email and other things such as that. Everyone will have access to their documents, files, and everything else in the cloud, which will make working remotely in the event of emergency, you'll be able to go anywhere you need to
In any of your files.
in any of your files. And that will make productivity for events such as that, because it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when in our community, unfortunately. And so,
Sounds like you're making a case from work from home,
no.
because this is the way the
Because
governor
I've,
works. She gives you this,
no.
and then you're serious.
I'm very serious because
Okay.
it's very
Just checking.
frustrating for me when I try to call up to Santa Fe and the person's not in the office and they can't access the file, because they're not there.
That's what I'm saying. It sounds like they
I'm
need
more productive,
365.
I'm more productive when I'm here. The other problem that we had from the McBride fire was, our servers were purchased all in 2018. And that was a much-needed upgrade that we had, which we have reached the end of life, plus all of the damage that occurred or things when we had the power outages from the McBride fire. We lost one of our data portions of our servers that we had to replace this past quarter. And so we are getting a quote now for the server replacement of the main devices that we have for the Village Hall, the fire department, the police department, and for the Horton complex, so that if the Village Hall is down, that's when we lost all of our communications, we'll have another server over at Horton, so that we'll be able to keep communications and everything up that's relied upon here. But it'll also give us the ability to move a lot of our services to the cloud, such as Tyler and Encode. We could operate that software from the cloud versus from the server, which would free up memory from our servers, which makes the overall price of our servers come down if you're being able to store things in the cloud. The cost will shift some because you're going to have to pay for storage in the cloud, but you'll be able to access it. And you'll be able to access it, if you are having to access a report from home, or in the event of an emergency, you're working from another location in the village. We'll be able, if Village Hall's compromised, we'll be able to set up shop at the Horton. And we'll be able, because we'll always be here. In the event of an emergency, we've got to be here to provide services to the public. And I've lived here since '79, and you can't not be here and not show up for when things like this happen. If the public doesn't see you, then they're in a panic mode, and that's not acceptable, and it can't happen. But being able to laserfish while we back up things here on our server, having them backed up in the cloud and accessible, you'll be able to access those things and see those things from the cloud. It gives you a redundancy to be able to have both of those things available. So this is one of the things that we're looking at, and we will have cost and everything for you when we get to budget
And Mayor
finals.
and Council, to your point, Mayor, this was something that was upgraded during COVID. It does allow people to work from home. That's kind of what Microsoft did with this component. But as Robin pointed out, if there's a case where there's ever an emergency, we can work from fire, or if anyone needs to go to any location, they can work from those specific locations. So
As long as
just,
they get internet.
yes.
But the nice part about it is if you were logged in on your Office, the new version of this Microsoft Office 365, you could then come up to this, your computer right here, log in, and you'll be able to see your desktop as it is back there in your office, and it'll be much more efficient. All of your files and things will be much more accessible this way versus right now, it's like, okay, maybe I can get to that drive and maybe I can't. And so it's much better Office 365 version.
I figured by now they'd be leasing servers like they do
That's
copiers.
That's the cloud. That's the cloud, is leasing of the servers.
Well, I mean, I'm talking about the ones you have on site that we're getting ready to spend
Oh.
$500,000 for.
I know. So,
Okay, so $650,000.
yes, I know.
Okay.
IT's expensive, but the return for your $500,000 is spread out over potentially 6 years, because I'm not,
Life cycle. I thought she was
Correct.
gonna tell us it's gonna make our lives easier.
no. I would not tell you that.
Okay. All right. Okay, thank you.
Carrie?
All right, Miss Carrie, are you available?
Yes, I am.
All right, sorry, where is she?
Down the-
Let's see. I'm just looking for your tab here. How's weather in California?
Next to the radio station.
Sunny?
Yep. But they're getting ready to get hit with a storm, I think, like, moving in later today, so. it won't-
Okay.
75.
Oh,
And what part of California?
Central California, up by Fresno, in Visalia.
Okay. All right, so giddy up.
My first goal for the tourism efforts as we move forward is one that you've seen, actually most of my goals are the ones that you see each year as they're ongoing, and let us know how we're doing to track and analyze the marketing and media buys that we're making. So the first goal is to determine the direct impact of lodger's tax and VOR funded events to our lodger's tax collection through strategic analysis. And that is using the tools that we have at our disposal to anytime we have an event or an organization that has come to lodger's tax and asked for funding, we can track through the mobile analytics tool how well that was attended. Did we see bumps in, everything from the website to social media to the heat map in town, which I know you guys are used to seeing from us from time to time. So last year we completely revamped the lodger's tax application
understand the assets and attractions that drive key segments of our tourism economy and better understand how we can serve these assets and attractions. So a good example of this is, obviously we need to know what do we want people to do when they come visit. And so we need to know if there's new events, new experiences for people to have, and then make sure that we promote them. And that's not just one-sided, it's working in conjunction with them. And a good example of that is this year for the New Mexico Hospitality Association, we nominated the Mountain Coaster for the best attraction,
Yes.
best new attraction in the state. And it won, and so they get a lot of publicity and traction out of that. So it's just working with our local assets and attractions to make sure that we give them maximum exposure and that people know what to do when they come here. And so we will continue to do that, and it's not even just in Ruidoso, it's more like a regional approach as well, letting people know what things there are to do in the county. And then like right now, we're doing the Scenic Southern New Mexico campaign with, it's us, Elephant Butte, TRC, Las Cruces, Silver City, and it's a social media campaign where people use their photos and tag the campaign, and then all of those municipalities have committed some prizes, and they give out weekly prizes to the ones for the best photographs. And it got us a lot of good attention last year, and so we did that again. So that's another example of working in conjunction to make sure people know what all there is to see. The next goal is to utilize analytics to determine the performance of our statewide competition and identify new potential audience growth. And I know that all of you that are there in the room even participated last January when we did the brand workshop.
Yes.
And as part of getting ready for that, if you remember, we did a deep dive into 27 life destinations. And that doesn't mean they're just like Ruidoso. Some of them were big, some of them were smaller. But what we did was we looked at everything they were doing across their marketing. And so from website to social channels to any other things that they offer. And that gives us good visibility on, is there stuff that we can do differently, that we can do better? Whistler has this great campaign, and so that is, what we will continue to do, because you always have to know what your competitors are doing, or else you're not going to be competitive. The next one has several different breakouts in it, but it's our digital strategy, having a good digital strategy in place to increase brand awareness. And so you can see there on your plans that we've broken down into what I call bite-sized pieces, how much we want to increase our followers on the various channels, and traffic from certain points to our website or to our social channels. And I tried to provide you with some hard numbers there so that you can see, like we always set a goal of, let's increase it by 10%. We increased our followers this year by 21%. So that shows us that, we're doing things that are encouraging more people to visit our social channels to find out about Ruidoso. Same thing with increasing engagement. You have to you can't just say we want more followers. You want active followers that are going to engage and participate and comment and like. And so we always move our engagements to a higher number. And so we have a strategy this year of 20%. And at the end of the 2022 calendar year, our numbers, when you compare them to and then you compare them to the end of 2023, they were a little bit lower in engagement, but after we've had something like the McBride fire, we, that caused big spikes in our engagement and in our social activities. So that was expected, and we weren't off by too much. And then increasing traffic it's important to know how people are finding the information. And one of the ways is that we want to drive people from our social media to take the next action and step, which is, visit discoverruidoso.com and make a plan for your stay. So in calendar year 23, we saw an increase of 53% in visits from social media to our website. So that is just an indicator that we're sending, when people come to any of our social channels, they are taking that next step. And it was that the 53% increase is 33% more than what our original goal was. And the next item is developing a PR strategy, a public information strategy, digital strategy as the village, as a municipality. So this is separate from what we just went through because that's all very tourism related. So this is the municipality side of it, and we want to establish the DOR website as the go-to destination for all village-related information. And I think that we have done a good job of that, and will continue to do that as we are redesigning right now the website. And so that is it's a big undertaking, and it's time. And as you guys all know, we got input from all the managers, and they told us, we asked very specific questions about what they need, what they don't need. Is there something specific that they need the website, their web pages to do for them? And so we're in the process of getting that all mapped out, and we'll come back to each of them with our suggested plans for their pages. And then just following the village social media stuff, we've had increases in all of our social, all of the, the local, we do Facebook, Twitter, we don't do Instagram on the municipality side since it's an image-driven channel. And so all of those things, we continue to see them trend upward. And then the final thing that is, or not the final thing, I have two more things. The PIO and getting information out when there's an emergency or an event that has happened in the village. Continuing to work with the fire department, police department, with Eric, and supporting those people in getting any messages out that they need to get out to the public so that, we're clear and concise and there's one funnel for information. And I think we've all seen over the last few years that when we line it up and do it that way, the outcome is better.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the publication of the Insider, the Ruidoso Insider. We've now published 30, and number 31 should be hitting boxes anytime now if they haven't already. And, it began as a way to communicate important village information to residents since we don't really have a local newspaper. And just to give you an idea of some things that are coming down the pike, we have had other entities in the area come to us and ask if they can be a part of the newsletter because they don't have any way to get information out. And I'm talking about like the hospital. They're going
That's a
The
good idea.
hospital's going to do it, the school district is going to do it, and so I think that that's a testament to, you know, you guys getting behind this idea, and even though the initial plans were for it to be completely digital at this point, there are so many people that, you know, like, oh my gosh, this is the only way I know what, you know, what's going on in one place. And so I think that that has been a really great project that you guys have supported and gotten behind.
I can't believe it, that the Insider hadn't won an award yet. Did you hear me?
I know yes.
Well, I mean, you must be on a big delay, but I'm surprised with all the good comments and stuff. I've seen awards handed out for, you know, a lot less than what we do on this thing, but I really am surprised because it has become the voice of Ruidoso so much.
Yes.
But I think that's great. I talked to Todd about it, and then I know we visited with Becca a little bit, Ferguson, the new administrator, and some of those. So I think that's awesome.
I do too.
So do you guys have any questions on any of the stuff that I went over?
The website, so what kind of time frame are we looking at?
Probably about another 2.5 months.
Okay, and who's doing the design of that again?
My team is.
Yeah, I thought it was, what's her name? Gilligan? Is she doing it? Ellen?
Alden and Ellen
Yeah.
and I are building it.
Okay. Okay. So that we'll be able to, because that was the big complaint that we were starting to get. It had so much information, it was hard to find. And so hopefully it'll be streamlined to where we can tile the information. And still, I think there's a little confusion between Discover Ruidoso and our Ruidoso webpage. Discover Ruidoso is the tourism portion, right?
Correct.
But when people are looking at the village of Ruidoso, that's what they Google, Ruidoso, and then New Mexico NM comes up, Gov, and so so how do we make sure that people understand those are both official sites instead of the other one that comes up?
Right. And I think that a lot of that has to be evident the minute they land, which, you know, when you land on the tourism site, it says the official tourism site, and it's got, you know, all the action and activities. When you land on the government site, you know, we need to make sure that, yeah, there's probably gonna be a beauty shot there, but that the icons and the information that people see right off the bat, you just automatically click to like, oh, this is, you know, this is a municipal site. And then we had added an icon link to the tourism website on the municipal site. So if somebody got there and didn't mean to be there and wanted to be on the tourism site, they can just click over to that. And so hopefully in this redesign, we can, you know, I mean, because we're basically starting from scratch. We're not making a site revisions. This is a site redesign.
Right.
And so, you know, hopefully we can address all those things like that to make sure that.
Is it module-based? Is it a module-based website where you can change out a module without having to destroy the whole platform? It is? Okay. So like, for example, Parks and Rec, you have trail systems. Have you identified some of those? Are they going to be in your module? Yes. Because we get that all the time. Where can I go hiking? What does this look like? And do we have a map and things like that?
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and all of the managers and directors, they were very thorough in responding to the questionnaire, which is why we linked and the deadline, was because that's a key step in this process, is making sure they had time to think through what they need so that we can respond and deliver that.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions?
No, great job.
Great job.
Yeah, except for, why was I the last one to know that nobody liked Ruidoso Adventure Tours? I'm over here saying, yeah, that was wonderful. And they're like, we're dropping that, man.
Oh, we are?
What? No, we're not yet. I mean, no, but there was a little meeting behind closed doors, I guess.
Yeah, mayor and council, they had just a discussion on the cost, but we think they're amazing to have, so we're looking at it, so.
Yeah.
But we want the council just to,
Well, it's one segue into how do we interact with the county and the other communities that, we're trying to get them involved. And we actually had the esteemed Commissioner Mark here yesterday that was very impressed with that. So I thought that was.
Impressed with what?
The fact that we do things like the adventure tours and that, one of the statements was made, I'm not sure who said it in the county commissioner meeting the other day, that the village is in the county. Who said that?
I think that was Todd Overview.
Proctor? Oh, Todd Overview.
Yes.
Yeah.
Said what?
Well, just the county sometimes leaves the village out of everything, and it's anti-village, and then Todd Overview stood up and said, well, hey, we need to remember that the village is in the county. And so, we try to do all those things, but anyway.
Mayor, I take 100% responsibility for not telling you. That's on me.
What, about the Rudos
Yeah.
Adventure Tours?
We were gonna have a meeting and discuss that
Yes.
with yourself and the council,
It
but
was
that's.
just a ROI discussion, and
Okay, well, and I get that, and I know, what have we done, 3 years now?
3 years.
Yeah,
That was our 3rd year.
It is expensive.
yeah.
And
What-
I think that one of the things that we were talking about during that discussion that I know is on the table is that, the initial drive for that was to get people to come to Ruidoso and do the adventure tours. And it has turned into who actually participated a lot were the locals.
Yep.
And so we could see that it wasn't driving a lot of outside traffic. Our locals were taking advantage of it, which is great. So just talking about, like Michael said, the ROI and how we want to spend the money.
Well, and you look at it, how do we track a digital billboard? How do you track a magazine article? How do you track? And then we also talk about amenities for the locals with trails. So what category do you put it in? Is it one that we could possibly drag more in? The concept is hard for people to understand.
Definitely.
It really is. But I don't know, I think I'd like to see us looking at how do we modify instead of eliminate?
We're looking at some options. Our current cost per participant is about $800 to $850. Is what
Well, if you're
seeing.
just looking at it from
Yeah,
one metric that you're looking at it from.
Yeah, and that's what
It's
we're
like how
saying.
many cost per citizen is this $1 million track gonna cost us? Is that the way we analyze it? No. That's that's an amenity. So marketing, amenity, ROI, it means different things. So, we need to maybe put it in a category if we wanna keep it, if we think it's an overall good look, and how does it affect the county overall?
Yeah.
So what were you gonna say?
I was just gonna say, that's what we were looking at is the way we're running it that's the ROI, but, the options, looking at other options to incorporate or to bring people in, how can we use those funds to involve more people?
Yeah.
And get more people involved.
You could start dating Taylor Swift. That'd bring it in.
No lie.
Look what she did for Travis Kelce.
I'm fine with that. I'll make that sacrifice, Mayor.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you guys.
Drive
Thanks,
safe.
Carrie.
Thank you, Carrie.
Bye.
Mayor,
We have the agenda.
You betcha, thank you.
Nicole's said lunch will be here at 11:45. I think we're pretty close to that.
Yeah.
Okay, and the next one is Judy, isn't it?
Yeah.
Or, it's Christella.
Yes.
So my tabs are coming
And
undone.
that's for capital projects, if we want to,
You want to go ahead and hit
We can
capital
do that real quick.
projects? Let me just poke my head and find out.
okay.
I could use a break.
Okay, we're going to go ahead and start capital projects.
Perfect.
Okay. She'll text you when it is.
Nobody ever listens to me.
Well, I heard all that beating back there, and I thought, well, your kebabs are gonna get cold, so do you want another 15 minutes of this, or do you want hot food?
I'll make it quick,
But the
Susan.
deal is, it's not here,
Okay,
so you don't have that up against the.
no pressure to rush.
No
it.
Yes,
Yeah.
no.
When I first came into position as a capital projects manager, there really wasn't a direction. I think we just had a lot of projects that we needed to get done. And as time's gone on, we've been able to kind of make sure that each of the departments has not an official project manager, but somebody who's going to lead the project from within, because I think they're the only ones that really know the details, especially like on the water production side or wastewater. So it's kind of evolved a little bit more into a project management office where we try to provide resources on, you know, how to get their project moving, if they need to find funding, or if they need someone to be on site to provide some oversight with specific projects. So when we came up with these goals previously, the first goal was to effectively negotiate, obtain, and manage easement documents. And I think we're still going to need to work on that. I think in light of what Jenny's talking about and what we're going to deal with in the bridge project, I think that's something that we need to continue with.
Yep.
We're trying to find a way to make sure that any easements that we do have been properly filed with the county, because there was several previously that they were just signed off and not filed. And then also to ensure they're in Laserfish and then uploaded into our GIS mapping. So we're trying to work with, with Ashley's water specialist to help make sure that some of these easements are in there. It'll help, with Adam's group as well. So that's something that Zach and I need to revisit. We didn't really get a chance to look at. But I'm sorry, it hasn't moved further, but trying to do the dual role, I don't have time to always, dedicate to that, so.
Costello, I think we can all collaborate together. I
Yes.
think it's going to be a great thing.
I think it'll be easier if we're all working on it at the same time.
So when you talked about dual role, are we actively looking for a project manager? Or, what's the term?
Capital projects manager.
Capital projects manager?
Mayor, council, we did earlier, we haven't, lately we have not. That's something that we want to move towards that, to have somebody that can assist with that.
Well, and I think also, I talked with Mike previously, but we haven't talked about, I think the actual department has evolved into more of a project management office where we could provide service to the departments, but I don't know, we'd have to revisit.
So many of the projects are water-based.
They are water-based, and the other thing is that, do we need a manager, or do we need to have more project managers? So I think that's something that needs to be revisited. I haven't had a conversation with Judy on that yet, but that might be something we could look at. It maybe not specifically needing a manager for that, or I don't know how that would work. I mean, it's working at this point, working with the project managers. I haven't had a hard time keeping up with that portion of it, but there are other components to that management office that would be important, I think, to put in place.
So in your department, one side you have Ashley.
Mm-hmm.
The other side you have Levi, John.
Levi, John, Andrea.
Andrea.
And then was the purchasing agent.
And Mayor and council, Mayor, the last time we had somebody accept the position, then she stayed with the Department of Transportation. We hired for that position, and then that's where we weren't able to recruit her here, so.
Yeah.
It just seems like that is such an important position, because it helps maintain the village knowing what's going on with all the projects. It just seems like that's so important. We don't get in trouble with
Sure.
things not being done. I don't know, that's just my opinion.
And I think Judy and I worked together to separate it out, because when I got hired, I was capital projects manager / assistant finance director. So now they're two separate positions, and I think maybe I tried to revise the job description so that it would just be more on that capital project side. And of course, that always encompasses some financial management, but not as much as what was in the previous job description.
Well, and it wasn't that long ago, we didn't have project management.
Yeah.
No.
And Mayor and Council, I think with some of the discussions you had with Judy and then with Jenny and what you see now, you have an evolving kind of system with a facilities management piece, you have a document management piece, you have a grant and contracts management piece. And so you may be able to reassess and look at everything we need. And as Christella just mentioned, it may not be your project manager, it may be
Capital
someone
project
that
manager.
works on something related to those.
Well, we need to get all that information together on the job piece and then reevaluate yours and kind of everybody's and find out what that is and looking, is that a whole position? Is it something different? You know, because you're right, I think that whole department started with zero and that came from overruns on contracts and change orders and inspections and all the different things that we were having issues with.
Yeah.
Remember that, Joe, when you first started, we awarded a bid, the very next meeting, they'd won a big change order. So it's come through all of that, so you're right, it may be more, but we need to look out at the long-term plan. And I know our comprehensive plan's coming up, but may not fast enough, you know.
And I think one of the things you've identified, Mayor and Council, is that the need for understanding once a project is done, there needs to be a clearinghouse where if there was a grant project that was assigned to it or a letter of award, who's following up with that? And so maybe even some of the items that Ginny's working on her side may fall under that, whether it's your roof that goes up, where are we gonna document those things? And if a capital project manager is already in that area, it may be able to be held onto by that instead of multiple areas. So I think at least reviewing the clearinghouse option and figuring out whose responsibilities are where and what ties closer may be something we evaluate and bring back to you.
And luckily, the staff that we have in place now with John and Levi, they're doing a really good job. I see that a lot of departments are requesting their assistance now, and they're even to the point where they now need to, they separate because they have multiple meetings going on. So I'm encouraged by that. I think it took a while for the departments to feel like they could be comfortable that the staff was going to be able to help. And I, you know, some people like Adam, he'll like a little bit of help and some others need more help. So we kind of try to customize it to whatever the director wants. You know, what kind of help do you want? Is it just for the day? Do you need it for the entire project? And they've done a really good job.
Well, I know just in things we do, it's nice if you have somebody who comes in and they're saying, what colors do we want for the wall, what kind of carpet do we want? What kind of this? That director, manager doesn't have time to go find all that. If these guys have a touch on who, that they can set them up with a local contractor or whatever to bring them samples and talk to them about those things.
And I think, you know, John is trying to mentor Levi on some of the, you know, construction side of things, but Levi is a very sharp individual, and he's picking up, and he's willing to help with almost anything. So he's taking on some of the larger projects, like I want him to work on the screen project at the wastewater treatment
You
plant.
definitely,
And
because I
so
know
that
that
we
those
have-
guys out there have a full-time job anyway. It's just the technical aspect of, are we gonna have a hatch? Oh, we're not gonna have a hatch? We're just gonna have to tear the roof off again?
Yeah.
Those kind of things that JUB board needs to understand and how this is, because I mean, I think we do, but at first we were gonna have a hatch out
Yeah.
there, so.
And I think as we get new project, engineering designs, and for projects that I have, I asked them to look at it, and they've identified some holes. And because they have that different background, they see, you know, the blueprints a little bit in a different way than I do, or it may be another director might. So I try to bring them in the beginning to look at, hey, this is what they're proposing, does it make sense?
Because out of your department, a lot of revenue's generated as far as going after grants,
Yeah.
identifying things that are coming up that we need to be prepared, whether it's end-of-life cycles or whatever, that we can put into that we start writing grants for, and then so I think that's an expensive part of the business of the village, is going after those grants, but in water, all the things that that department does that we can identify and expand on, rather than waiting until we're bursting at the seams. It's like, oh, we gotta have this, or this is broke and we need to fix that we start forecasting more than what we even are now. And I think that builds our pipeline, our GRT, all that stuff that we've talked about.
And that's a good segue into the next part that Judy and I had wanted to work on, was to develop standard operating procedures for obtaining, managing, and closing out grants. finance really doesn't have the staffing or the time to be able to, make sure that all these grants are occurring. It should be up to whoever, applied for the grant to be able to track that they're following through with the work plans and trying to stay on budget. I mean, Judy's shop pretty much just, does the drawdowns and those kind of things. So I thought, it'd be important to at least have those standard operating procedures in place. So when people do have a grant, not everybody's managed a grant in the past, so there's maybe forms or things that they could utilize, to, even draft work plans or draft applications that they could utilize as a resource.
What are we doing on that now? Nada?
Judy's doing everything.
So, how do we break that out? If we're talking about this position, that you're saying this could possibly be part of their application for that position, is we need to have that workload drawn out for that specialization to tie with other things so that we can put that person, that job scope. And sometimes when we do this, we specialize it so much that person doesn't exist. We need to find somebody that has the basic knowledge and the skill set to adapt to that.
And Mayor and Council, prior, I was doing all the legislative appropriations, the notice of obligations, and all the reimbursements. Now Judy's doing it, so we kind of went to Judy. Now we need to have somebody that can be able to, and it's easy to train somebody on that, just getting that right person to be able to do that. There's reports that are very time sensitive, reports to DFA and to other funding agencies, so that's something that we need to work on.
Well, especially, it seems like the trick now at the state level is to hide the money until it's almost impossible to spend it. And so as long as we have projects that are shelf-ready, shovel-ready, whatever ready, that we can take action on, and then we have these things that people, well, we're looking at legislative issues, we're looking at grant applications, because they send me stuff all the time that I try to read it, like, that sounds good, smells good, and I send it, and the person I'm sent to hadn't even got it yet that can make it happen. But we were notified, technically, so.
So a lot of times on the grants, what happens is that you and me are labeled as the designated representative. So what happens is that, right now, what I do is when I get a grant, execute a grant agreement, then I kind of just flow through to see what kind of reports or notice of obligations are needed. So it would be nice if the department who's applying for the grant would look at all that stuff and just submit it to me, because right now I'm doing it and sometimes I don't always know the answer to the questions when, like on a notice of obligation, you have to put the proposal of what they're doing, and some of the analysts will ask questions and I have no clue what they're doing.
So you're talking about taking that information, sending it back out to the admins? in
Or
those
whoever
departments?
has the grant, because they have a little bit more knowledge of what the grant's gonna be used for. And if they kind of help flow the paperwork through us, that would be great, because right now I'm creating everything.
For an example, Lee, we're gonna go after, there's money put in the airport fund. So we go after that. He didn't apply for the grant, but he's gonna be the recipient, he's not gonna be managing it, but how does that work?
So, Mayor and Council, if I could just comment on it, I was a grant administrator for almost 9 years.
You're hired. Let's make that over there.
Yeah,
Problem
I'll give
solved.
all my stuff over there, I'll just sign the
I'll write the
paperwork.
process and oversee it. No, but honestly, I think what happens is you have a middleman, they're the administrator. And what they do is exactly what Judy's saying. When these items come in, they're making sure they push it back out to the department because they're not specialized in all of these items. And so that person may work with Sam, or they may work with Matt, or they may work with Lee, whoever it is, to make sure the right information is in there. And then they put it in a packet.
So that's the person we need.
And the duty of that person, it's not significant unless we have
A lot of it
a
going.
lot of it.
But-
So that administrative function could operate your contracts, it could operate your grants, it could look at some of these items that both Judy and Christella.
Well, you're
are
always
talking
gonna have
about.
DOT, Water Trust Board, yada, yada, that's built. And if we're actively filling out applications, going after the grants consistently, and then when there's all this extra funding out there that they can go after those, that comes into this one office. That person then sends it to Lee because it's gonna be on the airports.
Yes, sir.
to get technical questions and then keep an update with the contractor through Lee.
And they're really the one that handholds the documents back and forth. They're administrative in nature. They're not the one doing the actual work.
Correct.
Because they're not specialized in those items.
Sure.
But they're definitely assisting finance, they're assisting the departments, they're assisting management and giving updates. They're making sure that everyone's on the same page and that the ball hasn't been dropped or that nothing falls through the cracks.
So can you work with them to get a scope for that position? And then we need to look, after we've come up with that job description, what that's gonna look like and how it applies. And then see what that's gonna do and see what kind of person would fit that. And it's gonna take some additional training, I think, but it seems like it's doable.
In Mayor and Council, we have the staff here that can provide the training, you know, and it just, you know, a lot of these grants are all reimbursement requests. So if somebody doesn't submit a request and the grant expires, you lose out of that money. So you need to make sure you're meeting those timelines and be getting the money back.
Absolutely, and that's the fear I have because it's been such a integral part of our revenue stream here in the village. And then, like we talked about, that you can see it in our infrastructure, you can see all the improvements, and on the back end, we get the revenue from GRT. So we're feeding the machine, and I like to make sure that we're focused on those things. And we need, it sounds like that would be a good bus driver for that vehicle. So if you can work with them and come up with something.
And I think one big hole that has happened is that we have all these grant applications coming out and opportunities and people, and I've seen it in different departments where they're excited to apply, but then they never really check with Judy about the match component, so.
Well, and that's a whole big component. If we get it, what can we do it?
Yeah, you want this and you're gonna get it, but Judy may not have put $500,000 aside for the match, so that needs to start in the beginning. It shouldn't happen at the end after we've gotten the grant and then we're like, oh, well, we don't have the match.
And Mayor and Council, that would go to that person's subjective. So most of those individuals would say, oh, okay, we need $1 million set aside for grant matches this year because we know we're going after water, trails, we know we're going after all these. So from a planning perspective, that's where they would be involved. And then as they work with each independent department to kind of help move those things along, they could be that resource. I would caution that they're not a grant writer. They're an administrator in nature, and so we'd still have that component where our teams are still writing them in the departments, but they would help manage them.
So how many grant writers do we have? 3?
Formally?
You write grants.
Does
and
Matt?
Matt writes grant.
We've had several that have,
Sam is who I was thinking
No.
of. Who else?
we've had several that have submitted.
I mean,
Dick writes grant, there's a lot of people that
Yeah.
are.
Yep.
writing, yeah, Dick does too. I forgot about that.
And that's why I thought if we kind of have some standard operating procedures, when you're going to write a grant, these are things that you should make sure are done and before you start and who you've checked with, and then at least, not everybody has the experience, and maybe we can start mentoring other staff to do it, especially, if Dick or some other people are gonna retire, we need to have other people that can do it.
And Mayor and Council, we also, with Anthony at the Senior Center, we've been getting a lot of money there.
Yeah.
And and Judy's been helping him a lot with that also. In the past, I would help him with the appropriations and administering it. Now Judy's doing that, so.
Well, with our training, like, could we have something in training that could help people, kind of beginners, start seeing what a grant entails and how to write a grant?
There's grant
I'm not-
trainings that exist, but we don't.
Yeah, but we don't do it here.
I think we're low on the administration part, and once you get the grant, you just have to read it and see somebody just has to read it and to put on a calendar, okay, this grant is gonna need a monthly report, but this one doesn't, it needs a quarterly report, and somebody just needs to keep track of that on what grants need reports. If you have to do a notice of obligation, this one you don't. It's just basically reading a grant and keeping it on track is basically what this job would
And
do.
what kind of a grant, if
Yeah.
it's,
And if it's federal, are there federal regulations that we have to follow during procurement? That would help a lot, just to know what the grant
Yeah.
actually is saying is kind of where we're kind of lacking.
And there's also, what I always do, Mayor and Council, is what agency we're working with, you need to make sure it's an eligible expense. So we'll contact them and say, can we do this? Can we do that? Because sometimes there's been entities, they'll submit something and pay for it, and they're not getting reimbursed. That doesn't qualify under this grant agreement, so.
Well, I mean, we've been making a living on some grants the last few years, and I would like to continue that aspect.
Exactly.
And so
Yeah.
whatever we got to do to support that, you know, if you're a passing team, you get a good quarterback that can throw the ball, that kind of a thing. So if y'all work together, come up with that description that we need, and then we'll find out what kind of notice we need to put out.
For
And-
a grant writer,
Nope,
It would be
grant
more of a-
administrator.
administrator.
And honestly, if we're working on that, my suggestion would be to look at Jenny's piece with the contracts. Because that person's gonna have to focus on contracts, on funds, and maybe make a contract grant.
Well, and that's exactly right. The timetables, the alerts, all of that stuff.
All the warranties and everything else that.
Well, how do you keep up with your calendar?
Who, me?
Yeah.
I have a checklist by month, day, quarter.
Is it on your phone?
It's on my computer, and each month I.
Because my phone
check
goes
it
off
out.
ding, and you're supposed to do this. Oh, yeah, I got 15 minutes to do that.
Plus, most of our grants come from DFA with Maureen, and she
Oh, she warns you.
warns us a lot.
Judy and I receive we get the,
I make sure
Christmas.
I'm on her right side.
Yeah, you send her
So that she
Christmas.
continually tells us, you
We
need
didn't
to
send her
answer
anything for
this.
Christmas, did we?
no,
Sent
I
her
didn't,
cards.
and no,
You did?
no, I didn't.
We need to send something.
But
from the
I
village.
always tell her thank you, so for
Not a
the
good
help.
Easter basket, I think.
The other item I would include with that as far as resources go is when Jenny does the training for Laserfish and.
There you go.
And whatever those components are, those bells and whistles for notifications are gonna be key, because they'll alert you as to when 90 days are up on the contract with, you need a grant report done, whether you have those federal items, and that person can push those out to the departments. And again, these guys are busy doing what they do, but if that person can follow up on it to at least say, this is what we're identifying, that may help streamline a lot of the process and what we're doing, so.
Okay. All right, that sounds good. Well, if y'all work together to come up with that, then we can have something to look for, somebody.
And that's why I thought necessarily a capital projects manager may not fit in this role anymore, given the way things have gone. And when it was that dual role, I saw that with Judy, it was a huge hole with grants management. That's why I included as part of that, but we can move from there.
Okay.
There's the technical side where of the technical reporting, and then there's also the financial reporting. So it's dual components. And then I'll go quickly through implementing project management software. We selected Smart Sheets. We have 11 licenses. They're assigned to various people. I know in Water Resources, we're utilizing it on a daily basis. And I've been working with Levi and John to learn the software and to start utilizing it for projects. And I think the 603 Meacham project is going to be the first one that they utilize Smart Sheets to manage, because there's so many different components to it. So Levi is really good on the technical side of things, and he's working on utilizing it and showing John how to do it as well. And then, of course, one of the biggies is completing the sewer line project. I remember when I walked in the door, I was told there can't be we can't drop the ball on anything. And so far, I think, working with Adam and working with the project managers, we're almost to the finish line. So hopefully by June, this component will be completed.
So we did, in fact, last week, we did submit our first transmittal to the state of all our procurements for the sewer line, and invoices for all of High Water Mark and Moles and Corbin from fiscal year 2018 to current. So we'll see how long it takes them to get through all the documentation. And we're only probably halfway through submitting the documentation.
Okay, and that goes to what department?
Homeland Security.
Is that going to Phil Parks? Just him solo?
I don't know, it goes to Phoenicia, and then.
Oh, okay.
And then she divvies it up, because I believe there's another guy that's gonna be shadowing Phil Parks
Okay.
in order to get through this closeout.
Okay. So we need to have markers on there that we need to call her and say, would you get Phil or?
Absolutely.
Anisha, or-
And we're still waiting, Mayor and Council, on that grant agreement. They still can't locate, we were awarded 1.8 million last year for
Yeah, we
the,
never received.
and we haven't received the grant agreement, and I'll visit with the director from DFA again. He's oversees the capital outlay and see where that's at, but we need to have a fully executed grant agreement so we don't want them to come back and revert the funds back, so.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank y'all very much. Sorry we
Thank
kept you up
you.
there. There's a lot to unpack there. Okay, so do y'all want to, did she text you? So do you want to get lunch and come back to go to work? You want to take 15 minutes to eat or what? Let's just eat and try in 15 minutes or something. So we've got food in the back, K-Bob's. So it should be really good. So y'all are all welcome to stop. So we'll take a break.
Hey, I hope Ann doesn't get upset when she smells my perfume.
Oh, no, she'll be just fine. You go ahead and keep it, you might need it later.
Felt good.
Yeah, good deal.